Cinemodities, late night movies with Rob, Ben, and Zach. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities, where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally these projects gel, most times they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Ben.
And I am not endorsed by any of the world religions. I am above them. I am Vaughn. Now, that's from one of the movies we're going to be discussing today. I think that was a great quote, and when that gets said in the first mechanic, and that everybody, that's how it's pronounced. They actually say it in the movie. You know, Jason Statham goes, "Do you know what a mechanic is outside of the usual definition?"
I think you're mispronouncing what he says at that time. It's mechanic. You're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
We should, now that we did this once in the Crank episode, we should do it every week. What he actually says is, "Oi, governor, it's time for tea. I'm a mechanic." You know? Bing bong. Because that's exactly what Jason Statham sounds like.
Absolutely. And Jason Statham, if you ever hear this, I'm kidding. Don't kill me. In
the second mechanic, a mechanic which is not even the mechanic resurrection. I think it's just mechanic resurrection, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's a rough decision.
There's a line from Jessica Alba near the end of that movie where Jason Statham pops into frame, and Jessica Alba says, "I saw Crane doing something on the console." And I was like, okay, that's the most basic way to describe what's going on in this scene. You know, don't even say he activated the self-destruct button on the ship. Just say, "I saw him doing something."
Well, you know, in her defense, she probably doesn't know things. She's a woman. I mean,
she is a military woman. But you're right. She gave up being an actual military woman to do something with children in some third world country, right? I don't remember the actual country.
Thailand, I think.
Okay.
I think it was Thailand. No, I mean, it's totally reasonable that she wouldn't know what he was doing. So the part that I guess I find a little baffling is maybe her thinking that what he did was important enough to talk about since she didn't know what he was doing. But I think he does say, and I don't know, the timing is escaping me a little bit, but he does say something like, there's only 3 minutes till the boat explodes, or something like that.
Exactly.
So if she heard that, but then she could have been like, he did something on the console and then said the boat was going to explode. I don't know how. I don't know if it was a self-destruct or someone else destruct. I don't know.
Well, they should have just went all out and given. I think Jessica Alba has nothing to do in the mechanic resurrection.
Jessica Alba is, I think, the definition of a wallflower.
Sure.
in this movie.
Oh yeah, and it is we'll get to it in more detail, but I seeing the cast of Mechanic Resurrections. I was like, oh man, Jessica Alba, Tommy Lee Jones, even Michelle Yeoh. I was like, oh my god! I'm like, this is they really did the sequel thing. Since the first one was successful, they really tried to bump this one up. Turns out Jessica Alba, I forgot, was just in whatever year Mechanic Resurrection came out, 2016. Jessica Alba was way past her prime as a movie star. I mean, once you do what she did that Good Luck Chuck with oh god, that comedian everybody makes fun of.
Was she in Good Luck Chuck?
I think that was... Oh, she might have been an employee of the month with. She's in one of those movies with the guy Dane Cook, whose name I almost couldn't remember. And it's I guess once you star as the female lead in a Dane Cook movie, you're kind of downhill from there.
Employee of the month is Dane Cook, but that's Jessica Simpson.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure she did one Jessica Alba and Dane Cook did something together.
Okay, it was Good Luck Chuck.
Okay, right on. Yeah, once you do that, you're kind of downhill from being, Maxim's number one on the top 100 list in 2001, and she was Sue Storm, for 2 movies.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching this movie and I remember being like, man, when I was a kid, I really thought she was attractive, and now during this movie, I do not.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not sure. So I mean, maybe it's what you're saying, that she was just past the peak. But I was like, was she really not attractive? I can't remember now. She doesn't look bad. Like, I'm not saying she's like ugly. But
Oh, sure, sure.
I remember thinking she was like the hottest thing.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I had that same thought. And now I see her, and I'm just like, okay, maybe it's something we grew out of or something like that.
Maybe, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Maybe we knew she was in a Dane Cook movie called Good Luck Chuck about the fact that I think the premise is that
every girl he sleeps with finds their husband.
Finds their true love and their husband as the next person they date, but then he falls in love with Jessica Alba, and he's like, well, I can clearly, I could never have sex with you. And it's like, I've never seen that movie, but I think there's somewhere in the back of both of our heads where she chose to do that, and we were like, oh man, you're objectively good looking, but you've just like soured your image to me.
You've lost so much value.
Yes. Yes.
No, that's terrible. It's as terrible as it is that the value of a woman is so tightly attached to her physical appearance.
Sure.
In Hollywood, especially. But no, this is past her prime, Jessica Alba, but she's still good looking. Like I said, definitely. She's just not like, I don't know. I used to like, I would have just like fallen down over her before, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like somebody I would expect to see at the mall and be like, oh, she's pretty attractive.
Yeah. I guess all this. I'm glad we did a little Jessica Alba corner because we never get to talk to her about her on here. But to get back to, I think they should have just went balls to the walls, and Jessica Alba should have said, "I saw Crane doing something on the console. I think he was playing solitaire," or said something along the lines of like Jason Statham being like, "Oh my God, why am I in love with this bitch?"
Why did you think this was relevant?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned, Tommy Lee Jones is in this.
Yep.
He gives an okay-ish performance, except for like the very last bit of the movie, like the very, very last bit of the movie, where he finds out that the Bishop's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
That performance. Well, okay, I can't say that the performance is bad. It maybe is. The line delivery and that entire scene is fucking terrible.
Oh yeah, so that's and I think the very end of that is the bang, you're dead. He says that, right? And he like he doesn't
deletes the video.
Yeah. That's the thing I didn't like about that, because he's like, bang, you're dead, and then basically like I didn't even really fully understand, was he deleting the video or just turning off his monitor and going to bed? I was like, what is he doing?
He definitely hit the delete key. I think we're supposed to take that to mean that he deleted the video, but I'm sure you know this. If you're watching a video and you hit the delete key, it does not delete the video file.
Definitely.
That's not a thing. But I think that was just, I think that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be him helping Bishop fake his own death kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the thing I hated is like, so he looks at the picture of the anchor hole.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And like, the subtitles in Spanish tell us like somebody's like, oh, that's the anchor compartment. Like there's nothing else here. And so, at that moment I'm like, oh, okay, so he's hiding in the anchor compartment. Like that's where he went to hide in the 12 seconds he had literally from the time he was on deck to the time the boat exploded. But then he's just like, he goes and he like looks up an anchor hole and he like sees how much space there is in it, and then he pulls up an image of like some kind of safety like what is it, ejection pit or whatever that you would put in the ship, and he just like pulls up these images side by side and he like cuts a person out of the escape pod. That's what it would be more like, an escape pod. And he like lays it over the picture of the anchor compartment. And he's like, oh, you clever boy. And then, like the whole dinosaur thing. And then he watches the video and he's just like, oh, you sneaky man. And I'm like, why did you have to comment on it twice?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing. And like, I feel like maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like he straight up is just like, I can't believe it. He hid in the anchor compartment. That is definitely big enough to fit a full grown adult. Like, it's like, dude, like you didn't need to spoon feed it to me that much.
Exactly.
Like you could have done what they did for the first movie, where they just replayed the security footage and you see him do the like shoulder roll away from the truck.
Oh yeah, I thought that was fun. That little shoulder roll, that type of thing. But so it turns out I found out because. Not only are we going to talk about, of course, focus on Jason Statham as the mechanic, I actually did go and watch the original from 1972. And I'm pretty sure the last line of dialogue in that movie is "Bang, you're dead" after somebody does get shot and killed, where it makes more sense. So they were trying to do the reference to that in probably the worst way possible in the sequel to the original. Yes, sequel to the remake of the original. Yes,
right. Which the original didn't have a sequel.
Yep, only got one in 1972. But I'm glad that I went back and watched it's Charles Bronson playing Arthur Bishop and Jan Michael Vincent playing what's his name, Steve or something, whatever the hell his name is. The trainee assassin, and it's definitely a movie of its time. Like, There's the big action scene in that movie is like Charles Bronson pushes a car off a cliff with a bulldozer, and I'm just like, oh, that's pretty cool, it's like, nothing compared to like the big final chase in the remake, which is one of the most intriguing parts of the movie, I think. Sure. But it is pretty interesting how the two differ, and so we'll get into that as we talk about it more, for sure. But I mean, I know last time when we did Crank, we did a lot of talk on Jason Statham. This is definitely both of these movies that he's in, the Mechanic and Mechanic Resurrection. This is well after Crank, and I didn't really think that there was too much else. I didn't have too much else to talk about with him, other than one of the more interesting things I found about his choice to be in this movie was that the movie directly before this, in actual release date and in production chronological order, is The Expendables or The Expendables 2. I don't remember, but it's one of those movies, The Expendables. Okay. And apparently Jason Statham was like, oh, I want to do another leading man movie, not like an ensemble thing like the Expendables, because that's what my fans have come to love from me. So not only
really?
has the studios, I think we talked about a lot last time, with a lot of us being it's kind of like he found his niche and the studios just kind of kept pulling that out of him. And now it's really, we can't even say pulling it out of him. There's something to say that Jason Statham might just like being action man that just repeatedly gets called by critics a shallow actor type of thing. And if he's if this is the type of movie I want to make and my fans like it too, and he's probably raking in so much damn money from them, even when they don't do box office successfully, they're we talked about, he's on Netflix all the time, Hulu, Redbox, Amazon Prime, he's making bank. And I actually don't remember if we talked about this last time, but I think there is a good comparison to what you and I have said before about Nicolas Cage, where if you go on any streaming service, if you flip through some thumbnails on any way to choose movies, it is an inevitability that you will eventually see Nicolas Cage's face on a poster. I think Jason Statham is the next closest thing to that, where Jason Statham might take you a little longer to find, but he's on there, right?
That's probably true. And it's definitely not always the best of movies.
Yes,
you're going to get things like Death Race and stuff. But no, I mean, I could definitely see the comparison, especially with the fact that he doesn't always make winners, but every once in a while, there's a real fucking banger that he's in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think. So I actually came across a list recently. They were just 15 of the worst actors ever, and Nicolas Cage was on this list, and I was like, you stupid bitch.
Yeah, I don't.
Whoever wrote this movie is an idiot.
Yeah, whoever wrote, and whoever says that Nicolas Cage isn't a good actor, one, I think is just choosing not to be aware of the fact that one, Nicolas Cage is in on the joke. Nicolas Cage did a movie where he played Nicolas Cage, and Pedro Pascal was this gang leader that loved him as an actor and brings him to his island to hang out with him. Nicolas Cage is in on the joke. And also, Nicolas Cage has been around since the 70s. He's done shit that he has an Oscar. He's a very well respected actor that just sometimes goes crazy balls to the walls, and I feel that's when people are just oh yeah, he's a goofball, he can't do anything. And it's they're so
what's that Five
wrong.
Nights at Freddy's movie, Willy's
Wonderland. Yeah. Which I think he's really good in. I still defend that movie. Yeah,
I love that movie. But no, I think that you're right. The comparison is apt for Jason Statham. and he's in Snatch. He's had his Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Like he can do those roles, you know, where it's a little more serious and the movie's maybe a little higher quality. And then he can also be lead action man and have, you know, make a successful movie, even if it's not critically acclaimed or quote unquote like a good movie. It's still, you know, and I don't know if we're going to discuss it, like the Transporter series, you know, or trilogy. I think there's 3 movies in that. Mm-hmm. It's like that movie, at least Transporter 2 is pretty well respected in terms of like the action movie stuff. I mean, there's some dumb shit in it because there always is.
Sure.
But yeah, Jason Statham, he produces a fun time. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you actually said the Transporter or mentioned it because it made me remember something that I didn't have in my notes because I only found out about it recently. I know maybe we talked a little bit about it last time with Crank when we were doing a deep dive into Statham's career, but I remember we were thinking of like a handful of like roles he could play, like famous characters, and I think we just had tons of goofy answers. I was thinking more since we recorded that last episode that Jason Statham probably shouldn't ever, like, you know, get attached to a big name, like The Rock did with Black Adam, even like Nicolas Cage did with Ghost Rider, which, you know, wasn't a huge success or anything, but right. You know, it was a known character. I think Jason Statham should keep just being generic action man. And actually, generic's not the right word. He's just action man. He's his own action man that everybody can appreciate. Right. But speaking of the Transporter, I recently found out about this thing. It's another one of these crazy, you know, YouTube sports, and I guess you could call it a sport. Ben, have you heard of car jitsu? Like no. Carjitsu, like jujitsu, but with a car instead of Jew, you know?
I with a car instead of a Jew.
Exactly.
No, I haven't heard of Carjitsu. I am intrigued, though.
Okay.
I definitely know what it means.
Sure. So you can find this on YouTube. If you just search it, you can find it. And you can find, now that it's coming up, it's like been big on the internet for maybe a few days or something now, maybe a week. So this is what it is. For anybody who's not know, get ready. Like, buckle your seatbelts. Literally buckle your seatbelts. 2 people get in a very hot car, like 90 degrees Fahrenheit car, and then they just fight each other.
They fight in the car.
In the car. And like there's 3 rounds. It's one of those YouTube sports, so it's like they try and make it as professional as possible. Like there's a commentator and everything. There's multiple camera angles. And, you know, on one round, someone starts in the driver's seat, someone starts in the passenger seat, and then just somebody rings a bell, and you get a 3-minute, just seemingly no-holds-barred fight in a hot fucking car. I watched some of this. Dude, they're like literally looping and pulling seatbelts around each other's neck and shit like that. Like,
oh god,
feet are going into faces, and like there's shit when like the seats will get not knocked down, but you know what I mean. Like someone will hit the lever and like lower the seat, and they'll like move into the back seat, and I'm just like, I was watching it out of, you know, morbid curiosity, just like I've watched like, you know, slap fights and like backyard street beefs on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, just shirtless hillbilly men fighting each other with seemingly no rules. But as I was watching it, I was like, okay, here you go. I would love to see a narrative, dramatized action movie about car jitsu with Jason Statham in it. Like Jason Statham has to win the car jitsu national championship or something like that. And you know what would happen at the end of the movie? He would win the car jitsu national championship.
Yeah, of course. That's hilarious. I would love to see this.
Oh yeah, everybody's got to check out a little bit of it. I mean, it is ridiculous. And the thing is, when I first started watching it, I thought they were just fighting in a car. And then one of the announcers is like, it's got to be like 90 degrees in there. And I'm like, what? Why are they making it hot?
Yeah, that's weird. It doesn't seem like it would add anything to the I guess theatrical component or aspect.
Yeah.
The event. So that's strange.
But that's, I think, Jason Statham, after the new Guy Ritchie, Operation Fortune, finally comes out, if it's ever coming out, get on to the car jitsu movie, you know?
Do it.
Anything else you had about Jason Statham? Any other thoughts that you had, or are you ready to dive into the mechanics?
Let's It's the Mechanics. Let's talk about the Mechanics.
I feel like if we just keep saying it differently, nobody will be confused.
Right.
Okay, so like I said, I want to get into. I figured let's start with the first one, and we'll do some comparisons to the original from 1972 because it is interesting how they switch them up. But I was saying to Ben last time we talked before we did this recording, I am so glad that I took some notes on this because I had forgotten a good bit of these movies, and I'm so glad I wrote certain things down to remember them. And we had to postpone this recording a little bit because Ben had to go to dinner for about 2 weeks. So Ben had a 2-week dinner, and now he's back. And he might have died for some time during that dinner. I don't know if you want to divulge into how you maybe went to hell or something. But Ben had dinner. Maybe when we get to snacks, you can tell us what you had for dinner.
I would happily share with you what I had for dinner.
Okay, so a little bit of background. I wanted to talk about the fact not right at the start, we're already into it too deep, but at the start of actually getting to these movies, I had never seen any of them. Ben, I didn't even know that the premise of the Mechanic and the original, so the 2011 one and the 1972, was Jason Statham taking like a young kid whatever you want to call it, under his wing and training him. I know you were the one who suggested we do this series for the Jason Statham thing because it's right in his action man zone. But when did you see these? Because these are definitely like post high school for both of us. And I know when you talked about Crank, you were like, "Oh, that's something that I had to see back in the day."
Yeah, so I saw, and I've only seen Mechanic Resurrection.
Oh,
Mechanic
okay.
Resurrection.
Okay.
Before we watched these movies for this. But I was just like visiting my sister at some point when I was in undergrad, and a thing my family does is like we go to the movies a fair amount, but we also like get Redbox movies and just like rent movies and watch them in the living room where my grandma decides to take phone calls for some reason, and so like that's a common thing we do is just like get a Redbox movie, and so I saw this movie when it like first came to Redbox after it was released. Sometime while I was in undergrad. It could have been when I was in grad school, but I am not 100% certain.
Okay. So with did you know at the time that you were seeing like a sequel?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because there's nothing really that ties the two movies together.
Not a bit.
Yeah, you could definitely watch these as standalone things. I was even trying to remember before we recorded. I was like, is there anything that like talks about what happened in the first movie? And then it's not really. Just that one woman is like, "You've been really hard to find," and he's like, "No speako to English," or whatever.
Yeah. She says something about him faking his own death.
Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a perfectly clean entry point into this master assassin type of movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I watched it, like I said, I didn't know it was a sequel, and I didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Sure.
While I was watching it, and now after having seen the first one and the sequel so close together, I know I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's cool. We both got to see these for the first time. The first one, the remake for the first time. I definitely, I wasn't. I know Ben knows this, but for the cinema audience, I wasn't like banging on your door and saying like, Ben, you gotta watch the 1972 one. I know for a fact you would have been like, why is this so slow? And it's just like, well, that's what the movies from the 70s are like, and it is definitely slow. But there's some interesting stuff I want to point out that is not in the remake. But one of the things I didn't know until I don't even think we mentioned it. I would have to go back and listen. It's been, over a year now since we've done it. But the Mechanic remake is directed by Simon West, who we know, Ben, from being the director of Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
Oh.
So he's just an action guy. He's also done Con Air. He did The Expendables 2, handful of other things. Another crazy thing I never knew is that Simon West is the guy who directed the music video for Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. So it's kind of weird that that video, or that maybe first 5 seconds of that video being one of the biggest memes ever, is maybe his most famous credit as a director.
That's rough.
Yeah, but the internet takes weird things and runs with them. But Simon West, you can actually see in this movie, he's the guy who gets impaled by the garbage truck at the very end, like the bad guy's driver,
Okay.
which is pretty neat. So this came out in January of 2011, January 28th, which is a weird time of year to release this movie. Usually January is basically for like the remaining things that they're hoping will play for the Oscars, and movies that just get dumped because they're just like, oh, fuck it, put it out in January. But it did really well. It cost $40 million, made $76 million. So I don't know how much advertising they did. Maybe it turned some of profit. I'm sure, like we talked about, Redbox, all the direct-to-video stuff, I'm sure it made, its money back hand over foot. And they decided to make a sequel, which did even better. We'll get to that. But I was reading, and I think this sums up my thoughts about this. Maybe not quite, but Roger Ebert gave this movie 2 out of 4 stars and wrote, quote, "Audiences have been drilled to accept noise and movement as entertainment. It is done so well, one almost forgets to ask why it has been done at all."
That's hilarious.
And I wanted to use this as a jumping off point because I think the only part I don't really agree with that is it is done so well. I don't think this movie is like really well done. But I have to say, Ben, as I'm watching it, and I'll get into the problems that I had with it, like the fact that, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, I'm like, this is going to be a super duper double cross switcheroonie. This guy's the bad guy, and this is not what's actually happening. And one of the dead agents is going to be alive, and it turned out that was all true. But there's so many moments in this first movie, and really both of them, where I'm just kind of like, that's pretty cool. That's a cool action set piece. Like, it's the opening of the remake, the 2011 one we're talking about, where Jason Statham like puppets the dead guy to make the guards think he's still swimming, right?
Oh yeah,
and I'm like,
the remake, yeah.
And I'm like, that's a neat idea. I can't say I've ever seen anything like that before.
Right. Yeah,
and
that's very interesting.
There's a lot of moments where, like, the way that, Jason Statham kills Donald Sutherland, the guy in the wheelchair, which is, like, the impetus for the whole story, getting him to, like, bypass his own defenses so he can, make it look like a carjacking. I'm like, okay, that was pretty neat. That was a cool little twist. And there's just a handful of stuff that in these movies I was like, you know what? I think this movie is, as I wrote in my notes, all capitals with a space in between each letter, basic. But there's some cool stuff and cool ideas in here. So, that's why I'm kind of like, I get it, this is noise and movement, and there's some interesting ideas. But pretty much everything else, the story is pretty basic. So I got to know now, after only seeing the sequel that you didn't know was a sequel, Ben, what'd you think of the remake, number 2 in the trilogy of mechanics?
I mean, I definitely called from the beginning that the dude that he was being told to kill was somebody who should not be killing.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I was like, okay, so this guy's actually not the bad guy in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little like caught off guard, I guess, by the fact that he actually killed him.
Yes.
I definitely expected him to be helping him escape from them at that point. Like, I expected him to know that, and then for the rest of the movie to be about like them being on the run from these bad people, whatever. So it kind of caught me off guard, and that was not where it went. But that's probably the only thing that I didn't like call as I was watching it.
Sure. Yeah.
The fact that the son becomes an apprentice, that seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The fact, I love that the son becomes an apprentice because he wants to hurt people. That's something that I think I really enjoyed. I found it a little odd that somebody who does this for a living would want to take someone like that under their wing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there's a difference between like wanting to hurt people and being indifferent to hurting people. And like wanting to hurt people, I think, opens you up to a lot of mistakes that you would make.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas being indifferent, you can be more calculated.
So they do they do play it, if I'm remembering correctly, that Jason Statham takes Ben Foster's the actor's name. I think it's Steve, as we said. He takes him under his wing because of some level of remorse for killing his father, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And then of course, at that moment when that happens and this whole story starts to play out in, the first 20, 30 minutes or whatever, I'm like, okay, so clearly the third act is going to be Ben Foster finding out Jason Statham killed his father, and my only note is I just hope we don't spend too long on that, because I don't care.
Right. And I think they did a pretty good job of not spending too long on it.
Yes, I was very surprised because it's before they go to the skyscraper, the office building, to get the real bad guy, who I think his name is Dean. That when they're going to get them, you realize, or Jason Statham realizes that Ben Foster found the gold-plated gun or whatever that special gun is that his father gave Jason Statham. And so at that point that both of them know what's going on, but then they just spend like the last act of the movie until the very end, the very final scenes, just killing the bad guys and not, there's never even a moment when, Ben Foster's about to shoot up the real bad guy, Dean, the head of this organization that they work for, and then he's like, oh, it seems like he's going to shoot him, but then he turns the gun on Jason Statham, and they're going to have to argue for 7 minutes about it. That never happens, and I was actually pleasantly surprised they didn't waste our time with that nonsense.
I agree, and I think a big part of why that is the case, or why that's the route they went, is that I think that Ben Foster's character knew that Bishop killed him because he was following an order.
Sure.
So like he was mad at Bishop for killing him, but I think he was also mad at the guy they were killing.
Yeah.
For ordering it.
And then it makes sense where, they'd be like, okay, let's team up, take out the big bad guy, and then I'll kill you at the gas station later. Yeah, exactly. So now here's the thing I was actually really interested to see. This whole setup that we just described in the remake, basically exactly the same in the original. Charles Bronson plays Arthur Bishop. He gets told to kill Harry. Harry's not in a wheelchair in the original. I don't know if it was a Donald Sutherland health thing that he needed to be in a wheelchair, or they just had the thought that, a wheelchair character going downstairs would be a neat visual. Because when he's like escaping the office building, he has to lower himself down a set of stairs in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know about that. But Harry's not in a wheelchair, and it seems I was a little unclear of this in the original, but they basically like have some small sense of dialogue where the guys of this organization are like, Arthur or Bishop, you gotta go kill Harry because he's just like fucking shit up. Like he's not doing the job right, and he's getting more people angry at us than, he needs to. And Charles Bronson is like, okay, I'm gonna go kill him. Charles Bronson kills him, meets the son later on, but in the original, the son is not distraught that his father is dead. The son actively hated his father. So much so that the son throws a massive party at the father's, like, palatial estate, like the day of his funeral or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And now here's the kicker. There's some, I'll pick out these scenes later, but eventually, they do get together, and Charles Bronson wants to teach, it's Jan Michael Vincent in the 1972 version, wants to teach him how to be an assassin, but not because he feels bad for killing his father. It's more of like, because this kid is like a master, but not a master of being an assassin. It's like a master in a different way. And there's some scenes I'll highlight to explain what I mean. But it's more of like Charles Bronson being old school and Steve being new school. And they almost start to work together out a sense of respect that I got. And it was pretty interesting because at the end of the movie, it is stated that at no point throughout the movie, even at the end when Jan Michael Vincent Steve actually succeeds in killing Arthur Bishop does not survive the original, it is stated that he never knew Bishop killed his father. So that whole dynamic is not there. And I was like, that's really interesting, but I get why in 2011, Hollywood and these types of stories, you needed that more like emotional, just like, not placeholder, but like emotional spike to kind of rest things on.
Sure, but that makes it sound like in the 70s movie that this is just like sheer coincidence. Why does he kill Arthur Bishop in that movie?
So he ends up killing him because once Arthur Bishop like brings on Steve and they start doing jobs together, the people of the organization, what I don't think they're given a name in any of these movies, they're like, you brought someone from the outside like in to do a job, and like you are not supposed to do that. Like, we don't know who this person is. Well, they kind of know him because he's Harry's son, but they're like, you can't just like get somebody to do a job for you. And then they eventually are like, okay, we're going to kill Arthur Bishop and Steve because they've both broken the rules. But at the end, in the ultra super double cross switcherooski, you know, whatever you want to call it, like a job goes wrong, and Steve and Charles Bronson start getting chased by like the organization, and they do get away. But then Steve is like, I have to kill you because if you stay alive and we keep working together, they're always going to be coming for us.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was a wildly different dynamic, which I thought was just like kind of an interesting comparison to the emotional resonance that they needed with like, you killed my father type of thing in 2011.
Yeah, I guess I did find that strange because their connection, like the father and son connection, was not strong even in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, he was upset that his dad was dead, but he didn't like have a good relationship with his dad.
Yeah. Even in the opening scene where Harry first shows up, I think he like talks about the son, and he's like, he was doing a security job and he almost killed somebody. He's such a disappointment. And I'm like, okay, I see what they're setting up. But then, and I want to talk about Ben Foster's character in the first movie, in the remake, because I do not think Ben Foster gives a good performance at all. And I think that he is so dumb in some of his decisions, which of course he's new to it. But like Jason Statham, when he's pretending to be the kid with the beagle or whatever type of dog the guy they're investigating like enjoys, and like they're meeting at the coffee shop, Jason Statham's like, okay, you're gonna finally go to the bar with him. You're gonna put all these roofies or whatever in his drink when he's not looking, and he's gonna die. If you do anything else with him, your butthole will get fucked and you will die, you know? And Jason Statham's like, he will destroy you in every sense of the word. And then Ben Foster's like, maybe I do want to die, you know? And just doesn't kill the guy when he has the perfect chance to. And I'm like, yeah, you are a disappointment.
Definitely. He sees how fucking huge this guy is, and is like, maybe this is the time that I should take my untrained self and really put it to the test.
Yeah, maybe I should take my untrained self to this guy's house where I have no way out. And then, it actually does happen that, Ben Foster survives barely. But then I'm like, oh my God, like there's so much blood over that house now. His fingerprints are everywhere. His fingerprints are also on the vial that he puts into the guy's mouth at the end for some weird reason. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, he is a disappointment. Like, Jason Statham should be like, okay, you're cut loose. You literally did the one thing I told you not to do.
You should probably just kill him.
Yeah.
No, that was horribly disappointing. He is a disappointment.
Yes. But then one of the really big problems I had with this remake is that then I think there's a scene where, Jason Statham is like, I told you to keep it clean, I told you not to go to this dude's house. And Ben Foster's just like, oh, no, I'm mopey now, I guess. And then I think what Dean calls him, and he's like, you brought this outside dude into our job or something, which is reminiscent of the original, but there's some moment where Jason Statham's like, I don't give a fuck, the script has to keep going, And then Ben Foster eventually just comes back to Jason Statham's house, and I think they're going on to like the Vaughn job, the religious leader job, and then all of a sudden, for a lot of that job, Ben Foster, or Steve, is like a master, and he's all good, and he's doing things the right way. And I'm like, what the fuck changed after him being mopey for a day?
I think it kind of makes sense in that the thing that changed is that he listened to Statham. Like he actually, to Bishop.
Sure.
Just follows orders for this situation. So like the thing that changed, I guess, is that he accepted that he fucked up in the first incident, I suppose.
Sure. I think I would have liked, it is only a 90-minute movie, and it's an Action Man movie, so I know they're not going to flesh all this stuff out as well as I would like it, but I would have liked maybe one more job in the middle where you see Ben Foster like actually being like, okay, now I need to listen to you. Because yes, he's listening to Statham in the Vaughn job, but he's also kind of, if I remember correctly, kind of acting on his own accord in a few moments that are like the right move to make. Or maybe they're saying Statham's so good at what he does, he can just adapt to this, foolhardiness of this other kid. I guess I would have liked one more mission to flesh out their relationship and his skills a little better.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I don't disagree. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
So
I do think, though, that Ben Foster is not good in this movie. I don't really know him from other stuff, so I don't really have anything to compare him to. But I think it's part that I find him annoying as a character, and I think it's part the script of doing what they do, how they portray him, and how they just get through the 90 minutes. But there's a lot of moments where I'm just like, he seems checked out. And just so glazed over. Like, I think we see him make a facial expression like 3 times. Like, there's so many moments where he's just like stone-faced. And I'm like, let Statham do that. Statham's the stone-face action man, You're not Jason Statham. You have to show some emotion, And I guess kind of the point is that he's trying to be Jason Statham, because I think there's even that weird little montage where he goes out and finds somebody to have sex with. Like, he after he's been beaten up, they're out at the bar and Jason Statham goes off with his weird girlfriend that he gives the dog to. And then there's that girl at the bar that goes to Ben Foster and she's like, "What happened to you?" And he's like, "You should see the other guy," or whatever. And she goes, "I wish someone would hurt me that bad." And then it cuts to them fucking, and I'm just like, you're not Jason Statham.
Yeah, I definitely agree that he is maybe a little too, I don't even know if stoic's the right word, but too reserved.
Yeah,
in some ways, or maybe in most ways throughout the movie. I wouldn't say that I disliked his character. I kind of liked the idea of him trying to be Jason Statham in training, and trying to adapt his personality to who Jason Statham, or who he thinks Bishop is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say that I was disappointed by his performance, but I would say that his performance was blank enough that I was able to I guess more or less become the character that he was.
Oh, sure.
Become the character that's learning how to do these things. So maybe that was part of it. That they wanted to give you somebody you could project yourself onto.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I did find it a little strange, as I was watching this movie, that they decided to put this character next to Jason Statham.
Yeah.
In this movie, I was just like, that's just so weird to have 2 copies of the same character, in essence.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And I like what you said about there's that idea of we're watching somebody not straight up pretend to be Jason Statham, but you said it correctly, pretend to be how they see Jason Statham. And that's great. And that's where I think the dynamic is a little weird to me compared to the original, where you have the Steve character in the 1972 one is not some bumbling fool who's just just gripped with revenge and wants to go out and kill carjackers and stuff like that. But he is of a different generation that knows things that Charles Bronson, hasn't learned because Charles Bronson's so much older. And I like that those 2 were different characters, where here you basically have, some weird facsimile of Jason Statham in this other role.
Right. That being said, though, I actually did enjoy the carjacker scene where he wants to fight carjackers and stuff. I definitely got a little bit of Batman vibes from it.
Oh, sure. The
character, not any particular movie.
Yeah. I don't know. Hasn't a carjacker said to Bruce Wayne or Batman, "I'm relieving you of your automobile, motherfucker"? That sounds like it could come right out of a Batman, maybe an animated Batman.
Probably. I mean, there's definitely Mask of the Phantasm or whatever,
sure,
where he fights some people as regular Bruce Wayne, and it's more like they're jacking a homeless guy instead of a car. But basically,
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
I'm relieving you of your homeless guy, and he's like, "No, I need my homeless guy.
This is my homeless man now."
So I don't know. So I got it. I definitely at that point in the movie, I was having a lot of fun with it. It's oh, this is great. We get to see this guy kind of go off the deep end.
Sure.
And then we'd see Jason Statham try to rein him in, and then we see that reining in not really work in the first mission.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see the consequences of that being bad enough that the reining in works in the second mission, where he's like, and you know, like you said, it would have been nice to have like an intermediate stage, but I didn't need it so much.
Sure.
So like overall, like I was having a good time with this movie. But I definitely I pick up what you're putting down with Ben Foster's performance being like not good. I think it was rather blank.
Yeah, blank is a good way to put it. I also like you're right about the intermediate mission. I think it would have been pretty funny to have like another small, you know, this is only 90 minutes. You can add another 5, 7, 10 minutes, that type of thing. Right. I would have loved like the second mission after the first fuck up with the guy meeting at the coffee shop and them going out on like a date and stuff like that. I would have loved for Jason Statham to be like, okay, we're doing that again, you know? and Ben Foster being like, are you only going to make me like pretend to be this like weird skinny twink that people you want to kill want to fuck, you know?
Well, yeah, maybe that's Jason Statham's kink in this movie. He likes to watch people who are into little twinks get murdered. I
also would have really liked, imagine if like Steve did not want to be Jason Statham's partner. Was Jason Statham, was he gonna try and do the coffee shop, you know, seduction type of thing? Because I don't think he was that dude's type from what I remember hearing in the movie.
I expect he would have found a different way to achieve it. I think he saw an opening and took it, you know?
Oi, governor, this is me coffee and me dog.
I think that he saw an opportunity to do something ridiculous, like to make somebody else do something ridiculous, mm-hmm. and that he like that's how he gets his kicks. You know, this late in his assassin life.
Yeah,
he's like, you know, you got to find a way to make life enjoyable, and the way that I find is that occasionally I take on an apprentice and I make him act like a queer, like at a coffee shop. You know, like an effeminate.
Yes,
gay man.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
you know,
I don't know what's appropriate. Fairy.
There is that little like montage of when they're starting that thing, and you don't really like know exactly what's going on yet, but like the pieces are forming, like the movie's giving you that information, and there's that montage of like Steve and the guy at the coffee shop doing things, but Jason Statham is like telling Steve what to do in the narration. And there's even that line...
reminded me of Wrath of Man, actually.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And there's that line where, you know, Jason Statham's like, and he's going to ask you, where are you from? And you have to say, like, different places or whatever, you know? It's just, like, so on the nose.
Well, and he says something like, you have to be like a wandering...
Yeah.
You have to be a wandering, defenseless butthole.
And I'm surprised Steve, in that moment, he'd be like, the guy's like, so, where are you from? You like, live around here? And he's like, I have no family, I know nobody. If I died right now, not even the coffee shop owner would notice, you know?
I don't think he was that robotic, but...
No, definitely not, no.
But no, that would have definitely played well with, because that's essentially what he's going for is the there's nobody to miss me kind of thing. Like you can turn me into your sex slave and nobody will be there to save me. I don't love that was their in for this guy. Like
sure.
as a like I kind of like I mean I think that scene is there, or that those scenes are there to kind of drill home like what he has to do in terms of his research to get close to his targets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And but I don't love the use of I guess sexuality in this way.
Sure.
Specifically the use of gayness as a trait to be used as this guy, like because it's not that he's gay, it's that he's a predator.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know, like I and maybe that's what it was supposed to be, the predator aspect, but I don't know, it just felt very weird.
Oh no, I'm definitely with you, and I think part of the reason it felt weird to me as well is because something else I mentioned that I want to get into more, and maybe part of the reason I didn't love Ben Foster's performance so much is that it's not the worst thing in the world, because I kind of expect it for an action man movie like this, but the script and the dialogue is not fantastic, you know? And I feel like there's some moments where it comes across as just like, oh God, like they couldn't have found a better way to say that or something like that. And that just rubbed me the wrong way. Except for one moment I really want to highlight. It made me laugh out fucking loud, is when Jason Statham and Steve meet at the animal shelter to pick up the dog, like when they first start working together. And Steve says, "What is this place?" Jason Statham responds, "An animal shelter." Steve's response, "I know what it is." And I'm like, that is top tier fucking dialogue. What is this place? Animal shelter. I know what it is. That's like, it's like.
What is this place?
It's an animal shelter.
Yeah, I know what it is. Why are we here?
Look for a dog like this.
And I think he goes on to say, like, but why are we here? But just that back and forth, I'm like, you use the word is, like, what is this place? And then I know what it is. Like, just change up one word. Like, I feel like the repetition of that sounds so dumb, you know?
It sounds pedestrian.
Exactly. And I felt that way about Jason Statham's weird girlfriend, like her lines of dialogue where she's like, "Are you ever going to tell me your name?" And he's like, "I'm Arthur." And she's like, "You're not Arthur, you're Kyle," or whatever. And I'm like, I think I know what they're trying to do, but this woman is so irrelevant to the confines of the movie and then her saying it sounds like, you know, I'm like, this isn't, it doesn't get said as like flirtatious. It's just her. I would be like, if I was in Statham's position, I'd be like, "Okay, bitch, sorry I answered you. Like, what do you want from me? You want to see my goddamn driver's license? Like, shut up."
I mean, if we did get to see her tits before that, so.
Oh, that sex scene in the beginning is shot very strangely. The camera's like rotating, and they're like, it basically, like, I was like when I was seeing it and the way that cinematography was done and the way that it was kind of like almost blurred together, but maybe not blurred, but like with a lot of close-ups, I felt like a little kid who had walked in on their parents and be like, "Mommy and Daddy are wrestling," you know? Like, I didn't really know what I was seeing for a hot second.
I can't say that I remember it that vividly.
Okay.
That's interesting. But no, I mean, we saw her tits, so she gets to say dumb things.
Sure.
The whole thing with her like not knowing his name, like the best like charitable interpretation I can give to that is that was supposed to be her like acknowledging the fact that his name is not something she should know.
Okay.
But that's like the best, like I said, you know, that's a charitable interpretation, and it's like the best thing I could come up with for what that was.
Then she does when he gives her the dog that they don't need anymore for the first job. She's like, "I'm gonna name him Arthur." And he's like, "I don't care, because I'm never going to see you again in the rest of this movie." You know?
Yeah, which I find upsetting, and I find it upsetting for the sequel as well. Like, he just forgets about this lady.
Yep.
He just goes off to the beach and sees Jessica Alba getting abused by somebody, and is like, "I'm in love with her now." And I'm just like, what happened to the hooker? Like,
Exactly.
you clearly had feelings for that hooker.
Yep.
And I find it really, like, as far as we know, he was her only client because he was paying her well and probably once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So like she was probably making like $4 or $5 grand a month off of banging Arthur Bishop.
Yeah.
And it's like, is she, like, are we supposed to believe that that's not an important relationship to him to the point that he just like goes off and falls in love with this bimbo Jessica Alba is playing?
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed that it wasn't the same woman. I really wanted the hooker to be found by the people who were trying to manipulate him,
right?
And for them to use that pre-existing relationship.
There you go.
But so I was really disappointed by that, and then of course like it would have been the hooker who was not bad to look at, you know.
Yeah,
she was a good looking
I don't
lady.
have her name written down. I know she's not done a lot of acting wise, not done a lot of stuff. But you're absolutely right. That would have been a fine connection between these two Statham movies, and it still wouldn't have broken anything what we said earlier about the second one being standalone, you know? Just this idea of be like, this is Jason Statham just has to say at one point, "Oh, governor, she was from my past," and you're done. You're there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you do like a 5-second flashback to the Twirly Bird sex scene that you were talking about, and it's like, just give us like the room is spinning faster than anyone can recognize.
Yeah, you could even flash back to her
tits.
Getting the dog. Yeah,
a flashback like this is some person that Jason Statham gave a dog to once. Like, this is obviously important.
Yeah,
that would have been fine. And they could have done it so many different ways, so succinctly, and then you don't have to like fabricate this entire Jessica Alba character who, as you said, and as I agree, did nothing in that second movie.
Yeah.
Other than at the end, she assumed that Arthur Bishop would love Thailand, which I found incredibly strange. She was like, he would have loved it here. It's like, why? You're in the middle of the fucking jungle.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't sound like a place that anybody would love. And then, of course,
they show those shots of the of like the little mission she's working on there, and it's like straight out of those like donate 5 cents a week to save a child's life, like the classroom with no
Sarah
walls
McLachlan.
and stuff. Yeah.
Just like Yeah, so and like she wrote the letter to May because May sent him, which is the Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah,
lady.
yeah. Which I think she also has nothing to do, which I was very upset about.
Has nothing to do is a strong way to say that she's in that movie for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like what she has to do is to be a tour guide for Jason Statham on the island for the 30 seconds she's there, and she does that fine, but. So Jessica Alba writes this postcard, and she's like, Bishop would have loved it here. I wish he could see it. It's like, bitch, you didn't know Bishop.
Yes.
I don't know why you think he would love Thailand. You met him on a beach. As far as you know, he likes beaches. And you're in the middle of the goddamn jungle. Like, I just don't get why you think that you know that he would like this. Like, the most that you know about him is that you were tied to him in that bar on the beach for some amount of time.
Yep.
And then he put you in an escape pod.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty solid date right there.
I'm just saying she knew nothing about
absolutely.
him. And
no,
she was just like, he
right.
would love Thailand. Fucking maybe not. Maybe he's super allergic to mosquitoes. You don't know a goddamn thing. And I don't know. I found it so weird. Like, it didn't make me that irate when I was watching it, but I was just like, why would you think that? like I don't know about you, but like I wouldn't love being in the jungle. Like if somebody was like, "Oh, Ben would love this," I'd be like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah.
Like if there's anything I know about me, it's that I like inside.
You would love it here. It's constantly 100 degrees, and there's basically no water for anybody.
Right. Yeah, the only water that exists is in the air.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's like if you get thirsty, you have to just open your mouth and walk around and hope some condenses on your fucking tongue. Better. It's just it was just an insane thing.
Oh no, I'm with you. Yeah. Some other moments I want to highlight from the first movie. I do like Vaughn, the weird religious leader who's or the cult leader, I guess we should say, who's getting basically just like a ketamine IV when they go kill him, which is pretty fun.
He's like, I need to see God. Give me ketamine.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And like they're killing him more or less because he made someone have an abortion or something.
I think so. I was a little confused by is it the fact that like something bad could come out about what he did like behind closed doors, or I don't even think behind closed doors because there was video of him hitting on some very young girl. But I was conflicted. I was like, are they killing him for that, or are they killing him because he's being like too influential as a cult leader, and this organization seems to like pull the strings of the world, you know?
I definitely got the vibe that they were trying to say that this was like a justified killing.
Yeah,
like
it definitely seemed that way. Yeah.
Like this is a guy that does bad things and we need him to die because he does bad things. And I was like, I don't get that for your company. As far as I know, your company is a contracted place that people send their desired hits to, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's like Wanted, where it's like, you know, a society of loom weavers that fucking read out the magical hits from God or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually Morgan Freeman, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And
it's corruption in the loom, Ben.
That's right. So I was like, I don't think that these are like being handed down from on high. Like, I think that you guys accept money. Like, you're just the middleman between people who want hitmen and people who are hitmen.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yep.
They're like mechanics are us, you know? Like, you come here, you buy a mechanic.
Yeah.
You rent a mechanic for a day.
Exactly. I wanted to highlight at some point, I did not write down what he uses it to search for, but we see Jason Statham use ask.com. So, ask.com gave this movie their money, or I guess Google. Yeah, 2011 Google would have been way off the charts for this type of movie.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel like was there a line about it in this movie, or is there something else I'm remembering recently where they were like, "Did you just ask Jeeves?" Like insert.
I don't think that's in this movie. But that sounds familiar.
Okay.
We might have now seen that in like 20 movies.
Okay. Well, I feel like there's a line where somebody's like, "Did you just ask Jeeves like how to do something that like that you would never be okay with saying publicly?" Like I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
It was like,
Yeah.
It was I don't know if it was murdering somebody or like. Oh, you know what? It actually might be from that stupid show that I'm trying to get you to find.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think the doctor uses it to like look up a rattlesnake bite symptom, and the secretary's like, "Did you just ask Jeeves the symptoms of like a rattlesnake bite or something?"
That sounds like a CW moment for sure.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so I'm sorry that we went on that.
I want to say I was so disappointed in the movie pussying out in the right before the final big like chase. They have to find what office building the big bad guy is in, where they're playing it like Statham is putting the goon's daughter's hand in the garbage disposal.
Oh yeah.
But then they pussy out and there's just like a piece of raw meat, and I'm like
totally unnecessary.
Oh my god, you should have mutilated the daughter's hand.
Yeah, like why did you bring raw meat with you? Like, did you know they were gonna have a garbage disposal? Like I didn't understand that. I didn't like it. I thought it was it's one of those throwaway things where they're like he's willing to do whatever it takes, but he's actually a really good guy.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't need to be a really good guy. He needs to be a hitman.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
He can cut off a teenager's hand. And I'm not going to be happy about it, but I'm not going to be upset about it either.
Exactly.
Like just let him do it.
Yeah.
Like he could have killed their toddler, and I would have been like, "This makes sense."
Yes, this is the guy that kills for a living. I get it.
Yeah, like if he could have put a gerbil down the garbage disposal, and I would have been like, "That is pretty low stakes for state." I would have expected more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm totally with you. That was some bullshit, and I hate it. I hate when movies do.
Yes,
like,
I hate that.
Don't
fake
set
out,
some shit up. And then just throw it like, oh, he's actually got a heart of gold. It's like, no, he fucking doesn't. He accepts money to kill people. Like, he's not a heart of gold assassin. He's just a regular assassin.
Yeah. I'm with you. But then that last scene basically brings us to, I think definitely like the highlight of the movie, the whole car chase at the end. Like, Statham rampaging with a garbage truck, like impaling the director and picking up a car with the lifts. Ben Foster driving a bus into another car. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, Ben Foster can't give a bad performance in this scene because everything else going on is so fucking cool,
Well, and I think that's like leading up to that. Like Ben Foster gets on a bus with a gun and he's like, everybody off.
Yes. Yeah.
He just steals the bus. Like
and
that was.
That action, I'm just like, oh man, this is awesome. And they're like, it actually seems they're like in tandem and like working together to like pinpoint where because they take out a bunch of the other cars that like in the motorcade, I guess, of like the big bad guy, and then they like whittle it down to his one car, and they like basically just like pin him somewhere and lift him up with the lifts of the garbage truck. I'm like, this is cool. This is some great action.
Well executed, like fine-tuned well-oiled machine. Like they get in there and they just do some fucking like that's something else, like in terms of the skill of Ben Foster's character. Like in this particular instance, he's like way too skilled. Mm-hmm. Sure. And the only way that they could have gotten around that would have been a training montage, which I'm glad they didn't do because it's not the movie for it. But they needed him to be like more skilled than a noob.
Yep.
For this scene, and so they just went for it. And they're like, whatever. Like, hopefully, no one cares, because I'm pretty sure you're just here to see this action scene anyway.
Yeah.
So,
that's
like,
the Ebert quote of noise and momentum, or noise and motion, or whatever it was. That's entertainment, and I'm like, yeah. In that scene, I was totally on board with it.
Like that's the thing I disagree with about it is that we've been tricked into thinking.
Sure.
That noise
Sure.
It's. No, there's no trick. It is entertaining.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Like, there is a part of my brain that takes over very well that's basically like a raccoon. And I see a shiny thing, and I'm like, I gotta have that. Like, I don't know if you know this about raccoons. I'm sure somebody in our audience doesn't know this. You can catch a raccoon pretty easily by taking a jug that has a hole big enough that the raccoon can fit its hand in, but small enough that it can't pull its fist back out.
Sure.
And you put something shiny in that jug, and the raccoon will get stuck because it won't be able to let go. Like you put it in there, like it'll grab the shiny thing and it'll hold on to it, and it'll hold on to it to the point that it is stuck. Like, and some small part of our brains are like that, and they can take over during these scenes, and we get to hold on to this shiny action scene.
Oh yeah.
It's not a trick. I mean, it's maybe a trick in the sense that you're activating a part of our brain that doesn't get to be active all the time. But it's not a trick in the sense that it's not actually entertaining. It is entertaining.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I do the same thing that raccoons do, but with pickles. You know how many times I have not let go of a pickle to get my hand out of the jar? I want that pickle, okay?
Nice.
And that's why my hand is entirely scarred, because I always have to smash the pickle jar onto something to get my hand out.
See, if it weren't for the fact that the Pringles can is the same size all the way down,
yeah.
I know I would have done this.
That's good. But yeah, then there's another, there's Ultra Cross Switcherooski Boogaloo in the end with Steve trying to kill Jason Statham. Turns out Jason Statham not dead, but activating Steve doing something with the record player blows the car up, right?
No, Steve doing something with the record player sets the house on fire.
The house on fire. Oh, that's right. The house does burn down. Yeah, and then he's in the car.
It's straight out of nobody. It's like he's burning.
Yep.
And I know nobody came later, but I'm going to pretend that it was copied in that order.
Yeah.
It's straight out of nobody. The record player like sets off a spark that burns down the house. No, the car blows up. I think it's just also rigged so that when it is driven a certain amount of distance.
There's a note in the car that says, like, if you're reading this, you're already dead or something like that. There's some cliche note like that.
Which is a dumb thing to write on a note, because obviously if you're reading it, you're not already dead. You might be dead soon.
Exactly. I have no idea why they didn't put on that note, "Bang, you're dead," which would be a throwback to the original. It's still stupid, but that just makes sense to be the place to put it at the end of the movie.
Yeah. I would not have liked that at all.
Oh,
if Jason Statham wrote a note that said "Bang, you're dead," I would have been like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a child." Sorry,
it's in crayon too. It's like one of Charlie's notes, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or a Meatwad note where there's like an acorn or a pine cone on it. You know,
Charlie's notes are like, it's just like written in symbols. Like it's just like a poorly drawn gun with like fire coming out of it, like at the end of it, and it's like, and then like a poorly drawn car and a frowny face Steve. Yeah.
Yes. Any other moments or things about the first? There's one other background thing I want to talk about with the Statham mechanic. Any other things you wanted to highlight?
I really thought that they were going to try to do a switcheroo and reveal that Harry was actually alive at the end.
Oh, that I could at the end of the movie. I was like, I had written so many different versions of I got switcherooski, switcheroonie, ultra cross, double cross, boogaloo, and stuff like that. I ended up at the end just using the quote. It's not even really about like a double cross or anything. There's a quote from Bob Odenkirk in Mr. Show where he says, "It's like a double, triple standard, you know? It's like I'm saying, it's like double reverse racism times 9. And so I was just like, that's how this movie makes me feel. They could have just flopped it every way they wanted to, and I'd just be like, okay, I know, there's 8 minutes left. How many can they jam in?
Right. And and Harry comes out of hiding, and Harry kills Steve.
He's not really in a wheelchair, you know?
Yeah. Harry stands up out of the wheelchair and shoots his son, and then, like, I don't know, the son shoots Harry, and then Dean shows back up, and he's not actually dead.
The car's a transformer. The hooker was actually involved with Arthur Bishop just to get the dog the whole time. You know?
That's totally it. No, the hooker comes in at the end and actually kills Harry, and it's like, bam! You didn't see that coming.
Nobody would have seen that coming.
And everybody's like, yeah, we didn't see it coming because you didn't set it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm saying, man, the cops be cracking down on you. You know, it's like, if you're a white performer who's impersonating a black performer, they come right at you. You know, it's like It's like a double, triple standard, you know? It's like I'm saying, it's like double reverse racism times 9.
So the thing I wanted to mention, which I, of course, never knew, because I never really saw this movie, never looked into it, not this movie itself, but one of the advertisements for this movie was banned in the United Kingdom. So now, Ben, I want to explain this to you because I'm like, oh, I know the UK has more strict, what they can broadcast on TV, more strict laws about that and stuff like that. And I just I dove into this and I wanted to read this to you because I think this is pretty fucking strange. So apparently the ad for this movie ran during an episode of Glee. And the ad, of course, included violent imagery. I'm sure it showed that I didn't actually see the ad that aired that got banned, but I'm sure it was like, oh, he's an assassin, he kills people, there's probably some gun violence, and, UK's just super against the existence of guns. But this led to the ban of this advertisement because even though the ad was ran after the watershed cutoff. So the watershed cutoff is this thing in Britain where there's a time that, like, there's an actual, like, thing that plays on the TV, like an ad. It's not an ad, but it's like a PSA from the television, like, companies or like the BBC channels or whatever that say, like, okay, this is like the cutoff of time. We can now show content for more mature audiences. And that's why there's a lot of British TV that they like curse on and stuff like that. It's just played after a certain moment, like a specific delineation. And so even though this ad was ran after that cutoff in Britain, it aired during an episode of Glee. And apparently 13 viewers complained about this. And the BBC or whoever runs whatever the equivalent of the FCC is in Britain, which I'm sure isn't just the BBC, there's some bigger thing that I don't know, they determined that a lot of younger viewers probably would have been watching Glee at that time and were unduly influenced, so they banned that ad from running, just period.
That's stupid.
Yeah, I really like the fact that these, like, the sources I found for this specifically cited 13 complaints. And I'm like, I feel like in America, you know, just our local access local access channel 8 gets more than 13 complaints a day, you know?
Yeah, probably. I mean, 13 complaints, like, these are probably, like, if you were to give me a list of 13 people and, like, these are people you don't want to hang out with, this is something I might have guessed that they did.
Sure.
Like,
sure. I like that.
How did they get on this list? It's like, oh, they complained about a commercial? Like, that, you know, I throw that out there. That's some stupid shit to complain about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, why is Glee on after the watershed moment? Why does that matter? There's so many questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
And none of them are important.
So I think based on, you know, what we've talked about last year now on our Patreon when we did our Possession episode, the official title isn't this, but I think, Ben, you and I can now consider whatever that ad was for the mechanic of Video Nasty. I would love to edit the Wikipedia page for Video Nasty and be like, you know, that one ad for the mechanic.
So what's wrong with British people? Like... Okay, you know, I know
Jason Statham, come on and tell us what's wrong with the British.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I know I'm an American. I was born an American. I know I'm, like, super used to guns, maybe in a way that some people in some places aren't, in a way that I can't imagine. Like, I know people in Mexico are at least this used to guns.
Sure.
So, like, maybe in Canada they're not as used to guns as we are. Like, I get that that's a thing. But I don't get getting my knickers in a bunch about.
Sure, no, I'm totally with you.
I guess I don't really get my knickers in a bunch about much.
Sure,
really.
Sure.
I don't even know if I have knickers, to be completely honest.
That's a good point. We record sans knickers.
That's
for
right.
Sure. So then the other thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to run through some these moments in the 1972 version. Some of the things it's actually more famous for, one of the things I should say, is the opening scene. The opening sequence, it was actually kind of surprising. The opening sequence is 15 minutes and 30 seconds long, and there is no dialogue. It is solely Arthur Bishop just, like, staking out his next hit, like, learning when he goes out, when he stays in, like, breaking into his apartment, setting things up, and you get this real sense of, like, the meticulousness of Bishop's actions there's like this lack of knowledge of what he's really doing until it all comes together and he basically blows up like the entire floor of a building to kill one dude. It's actually really, really cool. And that's one of the things, if you look up the original, be like, one of the more notable things is that like the first 16 minutes has no dialogue and it's all just one assassination. And it is pretty neat. It was neat to see. I wish we could see Jason Statham do something that long and drawn out, but in this era of Hollywood, you know, people need to talk constantly, you know? There's only a handful of people that like when a woman sits on the floor for 10 minutes and eats a pie while crying, you know? The mass audiences don't look for that in their action man movies.
You know, and to this day, I'm not sure why. I'm really into watching women cry. I mean,
well, a man in a sheet stands in the background. Ben, it is cinema.
Yes, it is.
So some of the things that they carried over is, you know how Statham had like that hidden corkboard behind like a sliding wall where he would put up all his info?
Yeah.
That was in the original, so they took that. He had the car and stuff. Bishop had the car in both movies. The thing I wanted to highlight about when Bronson and Steve, or Bishop and Steve, like kind of first really get together, it's when Steve is throwing that huge party I mentioned at his father's estate, like literally celebrating his father's death. And Bronson is there, and I think Bronson is like looking for Steve, and he's going around this his father's house, or Harry's house, and there's this crazy moment that is just totally 70s, where Bronson like walks into a bathroom, like opens a door to go into a bathroom, and there's just this weird angled shot of the bathroom where there's two fully clothed people sitting in the bathtub. There's a guy and a girl. The guy is, like, playing with bubbles. There's water in this bathtub. He's playing with bubbles, and he's saying it's all in the bubbles. And the girl is on a phone yelling at somebody that she wants to talk to John Lennon. All while this is going on like, the sink counter, there's just, like, a piglet that's oinking. It's very strange. And I'm like, and, you know, this is, like, maybe... 25, 30 minutes into the movie, because the story really gets going after that first, 15-and-a-half-minute opening assassination. And I'm like, is this going to be avant-garde or something? like, what am I about to watch, you know?
I think today, that would qualify as, absurdism.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting that it was just an action movie.
It was crazy. While at the party, Bronson finds Steve. They're talking about something. I think that Bronson is either looking for something of Harry's, or there's some reason they're there. And he finds Steve on the phone, and it turns out that Steve is getting a call from, I think, presumably ex-girlfriend, and the ex-girlfriend's like, you have to come over here. I'm gonna kill myself. That type of thing. And
he's like, good.
And, well, okay, kind of. So, for some reason, I think Steve, in the same vein as the Statham remake, Steve and Bishop know each other to some extent. There's that whole thing, I think, at Harry's grave in the remake, Ben Foster sees Jason Statham. He's like, holy shit, it's Arthur Bishop. I haven't seen you in a while. So they do know each other. And it's the same in the original. Steve, asks Bronson to come along to his ex-girlfriend's, which he does. I think Bronson is, really intrigued by this. And while she's there, she slices her wrists going across the street. She doesn't die immediately. I don't think she does it very, deep. But she is kind of just, bleeding for a good bit of time. And while she's doing this, she's like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to do this in front of you, Steve, because you're going to stop me. You're going to take me to the hospital or something, and that's going to prove you still care about me and we shouldn't break up, that type of thing.
Oh, boy.
While she's explaining this, and Bronson's just kind of watching what's going on, I think it's a very, Arthur Bishop is just being like, what is this scenario? I'm going to try and just observe it, because this is strange. And this is really when you start to get the sense of, Bronson's the old school mastery, and Steve is this kind of new school mastery, or new school kind of mastery. The whole time that this girl is slowly bleeding out, Steve is speaking very flippantly about it. He's saying you're not really taking this seriously. I think he's like, can I have a beer? And he's like, do you have anything to eat? And she's like, yeah, there's stuff in the fridge. And he's like, will you make me something? And he's really, not really coming across as misogynistic, but totally flippant of you can't force me into this situation, even if I did help you, it's not going to prove that we should be together. the scene eventually ends where she's like lost enough blood to like start to get cold and shaky, and so she's like, I really actually don't want to die. Are you going to help me or not? And Steve just whips car keys at her, and she leaves covered in blood to presumably drive to a hospital. And that's when Bronson's like, kid, you got something interesting going on here. And that's when they start to work together.
That's interesting. I mean, I like that as a scene. I mean, that's like grade A. He just looks her in the face and is like, bitch, are you trying to manipulate me?
Yeah.
Make me a sandwich. That's some crazy shit.
Oh, yeah. There's some great 1970s filmmaking in this movie. I just want to highlight quickly. Like, I mentioned the big climactic scene is Bronson uses a bulldozer to push a car off a cliff, so they got a cheap car and, actually threw it off a cliff, and it blows up, and it's all fun and games because it's movie magic. There's a motorcycle chase where it's clearly not Charles Bronson on the motorcycle. It's his stunt double because I think Bronson was even pretty old in the 70s. But it's so old school movie making. Like, they do the thing where it's like one guy in a motorcycle chasing another guy in a motorcycle. They end up driving through like a posh garden party, knock over one table, and maybe somebody falls into a pool, They drive off a roof of a shed onto a car, and the guy working on the car is like, "Oh, what you doing in my car?" That type of thing. And it ends with the guy they're chasing like falling off the cliff on the motorcycle, and he just explodes into like napalm. It's great. It's like classic, just like, oh my God. As much as we've talked about, Ben, before, the idea of like how crazy action has gotten, especially with like the idea of Crank possibly being a satire and action getting crazier and crazier. It's just, there's something so weird where it's like, this was one of the big chase scenes in the 70s,
right, That's the pinnacle of action at that time.
You just had like a lot of shots of, and like motorcycle sound effects with a lot of shots of just like, they're doing little jumps, and they crash through a garden party and stuff like that. It's fun, to say the least. But then, like I mentioned earlier, Steve does succeed in killing Bishop. But then Steve goes back to the house, and he gets in the car, and the car blows up like it was rigged and stuff like that. And also in very like 70s action movie making, movies in like the 70s and 80s, and probably still some really, really indie ones to this day, they just kind of end. Like, literally, the car that Steve is in explodes, and you get, like, the wide shot of the car exploding, like another special effect, and then, boom, credits on the screen. Like, that's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know if I would recommend watching that one. If you like Charles Bronson, maybe, because I think that was one of his breakout roles. Because I think all the Death Wish movies are post-1972. They might even not happen until the 80s. And the Death Wish movies are just Charles Bronson is like, I've had enough of this riffraff in my neighborhood, and he just goes and kills a bunch of people. And those are some good fun because he uses like bazookas, like Gatling guns. Like, that's just all out, like, gun porn, basically.
I'm much more interested in seeing that as knife, like that same story, but as knife porn.
Oh, sure. There's got to be
like,
something.
I want
to
see somebody use a sword.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Although that might be a little too like on the nose today with like random machete murders that are happening.
Oh, that's right. Especially in Britain. I think we're getting banned in Britain.
Well, when you try hard enough to ban guns, people got to murder each other with something.
Exactly. So then that brings us to Mechanic Resurrection. And we've talked about it some already, this idea that it's this almost standalone movie. This is definitely my favorite out of the three because, oh my sweet Jesus, is there just some... There's some moments in this that are the pinnacle of just, hey, we gotta keep moving. We just gotta keep the story moving. And I want to highlight one of the moments in which Jason Statham legitimately looks at a computer screen that has a color-coded map of the world's 4 major arms dealers, and under their name says the words market share with a percentage. I saw this and I was like, I get so well what you're trying to tell me, but that is the goofiest thing I've seen in a while.
I guess I may have looked away from the screen at this point because I did not remember that.
Okay, it is
but
like
that's hilarious.
Right after Tommy Lee Jones shows up at the hour and 11 minute mark.
Okay.
So it's near the end, but I saw this and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's color coded, Ben. It's like
That's
fucking
funny.
like Jason Statham's playing on like a Pico or something. Like for a kid, like he might as well be like, you know, hovers over one of their faces and it like Tommy Lee Jones says like, "And I'm the biggest in North America," you know, and then he scrolls over the next one, "And the cow says moo," you know.
That's hilarious.
There's a lot of moments in this movie that are like that I want to highlight as we go through it, but I have to mention they could have done something amazing at the end of this movie. They could have done something so fucking great. It would have been just like an immediate like, I need to show this to everybody. It's when Statham and I don't have the actor's name written down, but Crane, the bad guy of Mechanic Resurrection, who like the backstory is something like they were both, Statham and this guy were like both POWs and Statham got out, but he didn't or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So he's like, and now he wants to be the world's best arms dealer, so he has to get Statham to go run through a checklist of the other 3 biggest arms dealers. Yeah, it's just goofy, but when they're fighting, they're on the boat that's going to explode. And I think, you know, Statham gets the better of Crane. I think he might even like wrap a chain around his leg so Crane can't get away. And, you know, Crane says, "You'll never be able to swim away before the boat explodes."
Yeah.
And Statham's,
he says you might get off the boat, but you can't. You won't get far enough away.
And Statham's response is, "Who said I was swimming?" I have never wanted to see more badly in that moment Jason Statham to literally fucking fly away like Superman. With how much we've seen him basically be like a master of chemistry, architecture, everything he's ever needed in this movie. Because basically, Ben, I think you might agree with me, Statham in this movie is what Artemis Fowl should have been in Artemis Fowl, you know? Like, he should have been the smartest person in the world who understands how to do everything. And if he actualized his ability to fucking fly at the very end of the movie, I would have lost my mind.
That would have been pretty funny. So whenever he said that, I was expecting him to have some kind of vehicle or something.
Sure.
But then he just like runs back into the boat, and I was like, oh, so when he said like I'm not swimming or whatever, like I never said I was swimming or whatever it is that he says, like he should have been like, what do you mean get off the boat? Like it's not that swimming away was the thing that was wrong. It was that he was leaving. That was the thing that was wrong. So I found that very strange. But, you know, whatever.
Oh, yeah. And so there's just some moments in this, which I said we'll highlight and stuff, because this movie is pretty dumb, but I don't think it's basic in the same way I think the first one is, the 2011 one. I think this movie has a lot of dumb aspects, but I think it's more fun dumb because I'm a sucker for checklist movies, and I think we've talked about this before, Ben. But when the plot is Statham's like, I got a checklist of 3 people I gotta kill, and I'm like, okay, thank you, movie, you've told me the 3 big moments we're gonna have, and I can't wait to see them because Jason Statham is a badass, you know.
Sure.
So this is directed by a guy named Dennis Gansel, who is a German guy who I think had only done German movies up to this point, and this movie came out in 2016. He actually, in some interviews I found with him, described the character of Arthur Bishop as like a dirty James Bond. I guess dirty in the sense of like, you know, he'll do more to get stuff done. I guess that's the best I could think. But then I read that and I was like, yes, James Bond. Yeah. He's a rank James Bond. But once I read that, I was like, the color-coded map of arms dealers' market share is a very James Bond goofy thing to me, you know?
Sure, yeah.
So Dennis Gansel took it in that approach, and there's some other James Bond stuff, I think, in this movie, like Statham, I don't know, having a chewing gum stick of C4 in that prison or whatever. But this movie comes out in 2016, 5 years after the first one. Actually, a little more than 5 years, because this came out in August, so this was an late summer release. This one also cost $40 million. So the first and second Statham ones cost the same amount of money. Where the first one made $76 million, this one made $126 million.
Nice.
So this one does incredibly better. And now, here's the thing that I was really surprised by. $105 million of this gross, so that's only leaving $21 million over, is from overseas. the overseas market loved this movie.
Really?
Yeah. And
so it only made $21 million domestically?
Exactly. So it must have been a thing where somebody in 2016 the overseas market is definitely, booming. We're in the era of Marvel, and Marvel's really popular, and those are huge overseas and stuff like that. And so there must have been some need, just like maybe how the Fast and Furious movies, do gangbusters in like China and stuff like that. Maybe there was something here where Jason Statham finally branched out to worldwide and was gratefully rewarded for it.
No, Mr. Worldwide is Pitbull. Mr. Worldwide. So that's surprising. I mean, I would expect, because I think the bulk of the foreign market, at least as far as American Hollywood is concerned, is China.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a huge
historically.
Part of it. Yeah.
There's that might be changing a little bit now. Apparently because they wanted No Way Home, they wanted some reshoots that just were not possible or something.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yep.
So then Hollywood was like, actually, we hate China or something. But like, I guess it was probably China then that liked this movie.
Yeah, that's my guess as well. Maybe there's some like European level, because this is a German director. Maybe his name was better known over there. Maybe clearly this movie could not have done well in Britain because it was a video nasty before it ever came out. I'm sure they just played it during an episode of Glee. I think Glee was
movie.
over by 20. Yeah, Glee went to their first commercial break 8 minutes in, and then a 90-minute movie played. But so yeah,
and then they resumed the episode of Glee at the end of it.
Of course, and everybody had checked out by then. Oh, those 13 same people from 5 years ago had checked out by then.
No, they were on the edge of their seats. They were clutching their pearls the whole time,
taking notes about how to exactly complain, and things like that.
Right. I have to complain successful.
So I want to bring up this movie being so financially successful, I think, at the end, because we have to talk about the reason why there has not been a third movie yet, but we'll get to that. We have to talk about there's so much going on in this fucking Mechanic Resurrection. It's so goofy. Did you get the sense that the contrast in this movie was cranked up like to oblivion? And what I mean by that, every shot of the beaches, of the water, of like the Brazilian skylines, they looked like those like touched up computer background images that Microsoft gives you for free of tropical vistas, where they crank up the contrast so the blues are the most beautiful blues you've ever seen. And this whole movie, I'm like, why does everything look like a screensaver?
I think with the beaches and stuff, yeah. Did you think the same thing like with the pool scene?
The pool one, definitely, yeah. I think anytime there's a lot of sky and a lot of water, I definitely think they did it. But like the prison one, they didn't do it for.
Okay, I was going to say, because I remember the prison one feeling very great, not necessarily, but like in that realm, like browns and stuff. And I remember that not really.
Yeah. That one they kept pretty gritty, which was appropriate. But then a lot of the like the pool assassination is there. I think like more so with Tommy Lee Jones's stuff, I don't think he had a lot of vistas to crank up. They just decided to dress Tommy Lee Jones like Elton John to make up for it, I think. And put a soul patch on him. But then like the big climax takes place on like Crane's yacht or whatever, and that has a lot of water, and that was cranked up. But there was just something so weird about the look of this movie to me, and I actually thought it was CGI when I first started watching this, because basically the beginning of the movie is Statham's in Brazil when the people who work for Crane are trying to find him, and there's that restaurant scene where they're at like a rooftop restaurant, and I'm watching this and I'm like, the whole background looks CGI. Like the whole background looks like they just had like a CGI screensaver render of Brazil, of like hang gliders and like, Christ the Redeemer, and they just put it in the background. Turns out that all of the backgrounds they did for this movie were actually filmed, but then green screened together. So what I mean by this, Ben, is the example I just explained. The opening rooftop restaurant scene, that actual restaurant and all of those actors, everything except the background, was filmed in Thailand. But then they went to Brazil and filmed backgrounds to green screen them together later in post-production.
Oh.
That seems very odd to me.
That is very strange. That is very strange, but it does. I think it would lead to the kind of effect you're talking about.
Yeah. That's like one of my early on notes is I'm like, oh my god, vibrantly colored CGI does not look good, you know. But then it turns out they actually filmed it and then probably cranked up the contrast to make it look, you know, as beautiful as possible. And we got those
weird
shots.
that they wouldn't try to match the lighting as
right,
close as possible, because that's what would have made it look even remotely real.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, that is all over this movie, and maybe that's a reason it like did so well overseas is because, you know, it's like, oh, look at all these tropical vistas and how good they look, and that's something that, you know, I think appeals to a lot of people. But anyway,
I've never seen an ocean.
Right? Yeah, in the cities of China, absolutely. All the smog. They're like, this is colorful. I didn't know things could look this way. You know.
I thought everything was gray.
Yep. The I think I remember telling you the view out of my hotel room when I was in Thailand was the rooftop of a building that was lower than the hotel and just like 30 fucking gigantic air conditioners, you know?
Oh.
And that's what I had to look at. But I wasn't at the beaches in Thailand or anything. But so now I have to know, Ben, what's your comparison to the first time you saw this, now finally seeing it again? One, just in general, and two, with the notion of the baggage in air quotes of the first movie.
I think that this movie was a good time.
Okay.
I think that this movie definitely has problems in terms of writing and maybe pacing as well.
Sure.
But I think that I think the pool thing is very fun.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things where, because that's one he only has like 36 hours to do that kill or whatever, or he has some really tight time frame, and that's where I'm like, the prep he's doing for this is ludicrous. He's now a master of architecture and chemistry, you know?
Yeah.
But it's awesome. It's a fucking great set piece, and it's a great way for that dude to die.
Yeah. And I thought that, you know, that was just like good fun in terms of action movie assassin stuff.
Yeah.
I thought some of the prison stuff was like a little rough.
Sure.
But I thought that there was a good nugget of something there, and then the execution maybe was a little rough. And then, you know, the thing at the end, I think Tommy Lee Jones was like a bit of a stretch, like his whole character, and like, you know, the faking his death. I thought that was like a solid idea and whatever, but I thought Tommy Lee Jones was a little over the top.
Oh yeah, he's going for it. Yep.
Which, you know, is okay. But like overall, I think the first time I watched this movie, I probably liked it kind of blindly. Like I probably didn't even watch it very attentively, and I enjoyed it for the action it was and whatever. On a rewatch, I think that this movie is absolutely like a fun movie, and if you you know, if that's what you're into, if that's what you're looking for, just like a fun action movie to throw on, especially if you want something on in the background, this is a great movie for that.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some things that, like, I'm sure we all know by now that gun silencers are not silencers.
Yeah.
I actually looked it up because I was curious. Like, I knew that they didn't really work to the degree that movies pretend they work. Mm-hmm. But like, we see Jason Statham use a silencer pistol like right behind somebody's back, and the person doesn't hear it.
Yep.
I looked it up how effective they are, and I shit you not, for a .22, which is like the quietest pistol you can find. Silencers effectively reduce the noise level by 16 to 20 decibels.
Okay, which is not a whole lot.
and for reference, a .22 unsuppressed, unsilenced, is like 150 decibels, which is, after it is reduced, maybe that's a little high. I think that it gets reduced down to about 116 decibels.
Sure,
I think that's the number. Whatever it is, whatever the actual number is, the takeaway is that it is still a little bit louder than an ambulance siren.
Okay,
that's how loud a suppressed .22 sounds. And he is not using a .22. He's using at least a 9mm.
Sure.
Which I just, I know everybody knows this. This is one of those things where it's like, we just kind of have to accept that silencers work so that he can be sneaky and use guns. I just really want to point out, they don't.
Yep, absolutely.
and there's no such thing as being sneaky while shooting a gun.
Yes, exactly. And same thing we've talked about before, even before we started doing this podcasting thing, is just like the fact that if an explosion can take you off your feet, you're dead.
Yes.
It's all that movie nonsense we've come to believe in that, we probably why we get all the do not try this at home notices,
Almost certainly. Like, even how often, like, I've been watching a lot of superhero movies and shit recently, DC, not the live action, the animated stuff, but like how often, do we see somebody get thrown across the room into a wall?
Yep.
And it's like, they get right back up and keep fighting. It's like, nope, they have a lot of broken bones now. Like, multiple of their ribs are shattered and they can't breathe. Like, that's, if we want to be realistic about it. Like, Batman can't breathe now.
Sure. Yep.
But instead, Batman gets up and keeps fighting, which is, it's Batman.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway. So that was something I
totally
want to point out on the boat.
And that stuff you bring up about, this movie is not without its problems, but I agree with that, and I also completely agree that this is a fun, dumb movie because of those problems, and I think because of some of the pacing, which you mentioned, which I want to talk about, because, just to get the idea across that, this is the plan that the bad guy has, which I think I understood before they needed to show me that color-coded map, the whole beginning scene that I mentioned on that rooftop that was in Thailand / Brazil, in Brazil in the context of the movie, I think, like, after Statham goes to find Michelle Yeoh or whatever, before he goes there, you basically see him on a computer, and he spends, I think $10,000 on a full data package to get info on the woman who approached him. And I'm just like, okay, I guess, like James Bond would have just contacted MI6 and been like, Miss Moneypenny, give me this information. And because that's what Daniel Craig sounds like. And then here he doesn't have an MI6 because he killed them all in the first movie, so he just has to find a full data package service online. I don't know, but what we really need to talk about is Jessica Alba's introduction. It seems a little too convenient to me that this Frank guy was hired by Crane to pretend to beat up Jessica Alba to lure Jason Statham to see her as the damsel in distress, but then the guy actually just gets drunk and beats the shit out of Jessica Alba.
Well, I agree. And unless he hired his really abusive brother-in-law because he was like, this is a perfect role for you.
Oh my God. Something like, I need you to do this for me because I know you've beaten your wives in the past, so you'll be able to pull it off convincingly.
Right. I know you're good at it. That's the only way.
Hey, for this movie, I could see it. I also want to mention, so what? It's like we see Jessica Alba come to the mainland for medical supplies or first aid kit or something, and she's bruised. And then at night, Michelle Yeoh sees her getting beat up on the boat, and she's like, Jason Statham, go out and deal with this. And Jason Statham's like, I guess, As he's pulling up his little, boat, dinghy, raft thingy, whatever it is, to get out to this bigger sailboat, Jason Statham's like approaching and you're hearing what's going on. And there's just this moment. It's the movie, everybody. I know I don't want this to be misconstrued. I'm not saying that domestic abuse is funny, but this movie is so cartoony that it made me laugh, where you hear this guy go like, you want a piece of me? And then a cartoony slap effect, And I'm just like, oh my God, like they're going here. And it was like, you want a piece of me? No, Frank, don't. Whack, whack. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, so that's something else I have to ask. Like, so the plan was, like, Jessica Alba get beat up by this guy, and Jason Statham will want to save you because apparently he's Captain Save-A-Ho. Yeah. As this is a term that came from my sister, so I feel completely fine saying it. I think it's funny as shit. So Jason Statham is like, I'm going to save this woman as part of my character trait because I'm the assassin with a heart of gold. And then they're going to kidnap her and use his feelings for her as leverage to get him to do what they want.
Exactly, to kill the other 3 arms dealers. Yeah, that's how I took it.
What if Jason Statham just said, I don't actually know this bitch?
Right? I mean, that would be his smartest move, you know?
Right, and they're like, well, we're going to kill her. And he'll be like, okay.
That's why...
Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to kill her?
Right. That's what I think where you're right and what you were saying before, make it the hooker with the dog from the first movie, you know? And then you can get the moment where Jason Statham's like, I do have to save her because I would still be with her and we would have had a life together if I didn't have to fake my own death or whatever he does at the end of escape death.
He could have taken the hooker with him when he faked death. She could have already been there and they could have kidnapped her.
Yeah, yeah.
They could have just lived on that island. Like, we could have started the movie there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, so like, it's like, oh, we're gonna kill her, and he'd be like, oh, okay, and then they're like, but no, we're actually gonna kill her if you don't do what we want. And he'd be like, oh,
he's like,
all right,
that is acceptable, absolutely.
Like, I accept your terms.
Yeah.
Like, what are they gonna do? Are they actually gonna kill her? Like, what do they gain from that?
It's
fucking
like
nothing.
It's like the thing where he should just respond immediately with no deal. It's the thing I know I've told you and I've said before. I would love to just go through all the fucking hoops to get on an actual episode of Deal or No Deal, pick my case, do the first round of like 8 cases or whatever, and then, Howie Mandel is like, it's the banker, and they start to draw it out and it's all dramatic, and they're like, the banker's offering you $7,000. I go, deal. And it's just like, and they're like, oh, well, shit. Well, we literally cannot make a TV show from this. Jason Statham's do the same thing. He's like, the Crane's like, we're going to kill her. And he goes, deal. Done. Hangs up the phone,
Thanks. What do you mean? That's what I wanted.
Yeah, Crane has to call him back or something like that,
I just hang up immediately, like, right on.
And like that was easy. Yeah, absolutely.
No, it did even better. Jason Statham's like, no, I don't have to do it. Then he hangs up.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the smart move. But this movie has to keep moving. He gets his checklist, and we have to highlight these 3. Well, really, the first 2 are the actual assassinations. The whole thing with Tommy Lee Jones, like you already mentioned, it's not the greatest, but it's the closest thing to what I said earlier, like double, triple, reverse racism times 9 in this movie, switcheroo boogaloo. But okay, the prison one. There's a moment in the prison one that fucking got me. But of course, Jason Statham's like the master of everything. He knows how to make a weird C4 gum stick, like a thing of cigarettes that's gonna help him or some shit like that.
He knows that they're gonna let him keep his lighter or let him keep his.
Yeah, I didn't really get that. Yep.
I was like that. How does he know so much about this prison?
But there is some moment in the prison sequence, and I think it might be the first time Jason Statham is like let out to the yard when he's like gaining information. Well, the whole prison seems like a yard. Whatever. He's like gaining information about this guy he has to kill. He learns that there's like the other guy that's trying to kill him, so he knows to get in. He's gonna like save this guy's life. Like the whole hullabaloo. But there's some moment in here where there's like establishing shots of the prison and the prisoners and what they're doing. And there's just like this really small moment that I was very confused about. There's just like this little circular enclosure that prisoners are like standing around and they're screaming at the circular enclosure and they're banging on the walls of it. And there's just a single rat in there. Like the rat's not even fighting another rat as far as I could tell. Like they're just yelling at a rat while it's scurrying around, and I was like, what are they doing?
Good question.
I mean, we will have to figure it out in due time because that's part of my snacks for the restaurant. But I was like, what is going on? But then, Statham gets in, he does his thing, he kills him. And this is...
So, I actually had an issue. I had an issue with this because they're like, it has to look like an accident. And he's like, all right, I'll poison him. Because poison looks like an accident.
Right, yeah.
I don't know why it needed to look like an accident anyway, because like in terms of the arms dealing stuff and just needing the competition out of the way, like what's he thinking? Like, oh, if somebody murders him, like somebody else is going to step up to take that power.
That's a good
Somebody
point.
else is going to step up to take that power anyway.
If the guy who Jason Statham prevents from killing the arms dealer just killed him, it's not like that new dude would have become like, oh, now I have his 33% of the world's market share of arms, you know?
Yeah, it's straight up you keep what you kill. You just...
All the bodyguards immediately have to switch sides to that guy.
Well, shit. I was really loyal to...
But these are the rules. Yeah.
Rules is rules.
But you're absolutely right. It clearly does not look like an accident. Because, I mean, immediately after, like, the bodyguards find out that the dude's dead, and Jason Statham does the small diversion of, like, let the man pray or whatever, because he props him up. But then the whole prison's, like, looking for it. Like, the whole prison's in disarray, and everybody's looking for Statham, or the bodyguards are looking for Statham, the guards are probably trying to figure out what the hell's going on. It just seems chaos.
And then Statham blows a hole in the wall.
This is it. This is the moment where I'm like, once again, it made sense with the James Bond type thing, where it's like, oh, he's got a cool gadget, a C4 gum stick. But this is the thing that fucking blew my mind. When Jason Statham is putting the C4 gum in the wall, there is a cut to a shot of the guards seeing him on a security camera. The framing of the little TV that we see in the guard's office is literally... Imagine if the security camera was pointed straight at a wall and Jason Statham is dead center in it.
Yeah.
So when Jason Statham is not there, they have a security camera pointed directly at a blank fucking wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, anybody just think about this and go, okay, when we have to cut to this shot, don't make it flat against a blank wall. Make like a high angle, like it's sitting on a post, you know, or something. Make it look like a fucking security cam footage. But the fact that it's just perfectly center frame Jason Statham, I was like, oh my God, they were really just trying to get through some of this, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I didn't think about that, but you know, that definitely was not a natural angle for a security camera.
Yeah.
And it goes like his whole escape from prison in within 10 minutes of the dude dying, just like that much more doesn't look like an accident.
No, not at all. No.
I don't know that Jason Statham understands the words "look like an accident" in this movie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because after he blows up the wall, doesn't he do like some crazy dive or something to get picked up by a boat?
Oh yeah, he like slathers himself in shark repellent.
Oh yeah,
and then jumps. It's like this dude fucking had shark repellent and C4 stick of gum, and he does a very clearly secret agent-esque fucking mission. But this one dude who was poisoned upstairs, that was an accident probably. Like, get the fuck out of here. You know, like that. Don't just leave out the line where it has to look like an accident.
Exactly. Yeah.
That being said, the pool thing, people are going to believe that's an accident.
Oh yeah. Let's get to that's the next kill. I said already. You know, Statham can do fucking anything in this movie. He's literally like Artemis Fowl, James Bond, like all that stuff. Well, what Artemis Fowl was in the books, not in the movie. Jason Statham doesn't cry in this movie.
No, he's Artemis Fowl in the movie.
Only because they tell us, Ben.
Yeah,
we actually see Jason Statham build some weird bombs and shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Artemis Fowl just put sunglasses on and did, I don't know, and what?
What does he even say?
Yelled at a fairy?
He's a super genius
criminal mastermind. Yeah, super genius criminal mastermind. Yeah. Yeah, but okay, so all this stuff, he's getting set up for the second murder, assassination. He can't, you know, he has only 36 hours or some tight time frame. This is where the movie's like just so perfectly economical and fun. I love the fact that we kind of know, we're getting the sense that like, oh, this other dude he's going to kill is like an arms dealer, but they even throw in the thing where I'm like, I'm on board with killing him because apparently he's like trying to dump waste near the reefs and shit like that. And I'm like, okay, let's fucking kill this guy. Dude, the whole sequence of like Statham climbing on the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, using the suction cup thing.
Oh, using the suction cup, and then he like drills in like the somewhat time released or time delay explosive. the guy in the
It
pool.
wasn't an explosive. It was something that just expanded as it hardened.
Oh yeah, okay, perfect. And that's the way to do that. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it just fucked up the structural integrity of the pool.
The
and
guy
made it collapse.
seeing Statham underneath him when he's swimming, like, so he knows he's about to fall like 1 billion miles to his death.
Well, yeah, he knows something's going on, and then the water starts to drain, and there's so much downward force. The water's pulling him down, like he can't get out.
Oh,
at that
yeah,
point.
yeah.
That was great.
And I love this is also in the little moments where, they don't need to over-explain anything to us, but there's that weird little touch of, like, the guy that he's trying to kill. He makes his bodyguards, like, turn around when he takes his robe off or something. Mm-hmm. And there's, like, all these little details, and I'm like, why couldn't the whole movie just, like, I don't even need the plot with Jessica Alba and Crane. Just be like Jason Statham, like, make it, Gone in 60 Seconds, speaking of Nicolas Cage, just make it like, okay, here's 60 kills I have to do, and I'm just going to do them.
Yeah. It's just a movie about, like, Jason Statham wakes up, and every day he wakes up and there's a new, like, note on his door that just, like, tells him who to kill.
I just want to see him being good at his job. That's it.
And people are, like, somebody even asked at some point, like, why are you doing this? He's like, to be honest, I don't know. It's like, they don't, like, have your family hostage or anything. He's like, what family?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I killed my family when I was 12. Like,
the first note was to kill my family.
And I wrote it. Yeah. Plot twist at the end of the movie, we find out Jason Statham actually wrote all the notes, and he's
got memento disease, a different form of memento disease. He doesn't remember he wrote all these notes and has someone send them to him every day. Yeah,
and they're all just like people who slightly wronged him, like cut in line at the coffee shop, or like somebody who cut him off in traffic, or it's like Jason Statham's like, I'm bound by society, I can't just fight people in public, and he's like really upset about that, and so like the only recourse he has is to actually just kill them as an assassin.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that's the best sequence in the movie. I love that whole setting of that. They give the name to that pool. I don't remember what that's called. A pool that hangs over a building's ledge. They say it in the movie. I don't remember.
It should be called a suicide pool.
A suicide, yeah, right. I mean that'd be a tough one.
It makes you think you're killing yourself.
Exactly. That'd be a tough one for me to swim in. I think I get freaked out at some of those pools that are like they look like they have no edge. Like in those fancy like California houses. And then I'm like, why? I'm like, I need like the edges of the pool to be 12 feet and the water to be 4 inches deep, like that's my pool.
I need
there.
Very well-defined pool.
Yes, exactly.
No, I'm with you. I like a well-defined pool, and I like a pool I can't see through.
Yeah, but it's a great sequence. And then he does some stuff with Tommy Lee Jones, and then he punches Crane in the face. Jessica Alba plays solitaire on a console, and then Jason Statham flies away like Superman, and the movie ends, right?
Yeah, that's actually 100% correct.
So what do you think about the whole idea of like the Statham trying to like work with Tommy Lee Jones at the end? Did that work for you as kind of like it wasn't really like an unexpected double cross because we know he's doing that because Crane's the bad guy. But I know you said you didn't really like Tommy Lee Jones's performance, but what about just the general idea of like, oh, I'm going to make him, Crane, think I succeeded so I can like use that to my advantage to save this girl who I only know for 3 minutes,
Is it to his advantage though? What if he had just killed Tommy Lee Jones?
That could also, because wouldn't
that have also worked?
You know what? With what we said earlier, he should have killed Tommy Lee Jones and then went and killed Crane, and then the last shot of the movie, and then killed Jessica Alba, and the last shot of the movie would have been the color-coded map of arms dealer market share, and it would all been Jason Statham's face. Because he would own it all, and then the third movie could be him being the like arms dealer of the world.
It's not clear to me why Jason Statham would be interested in saving Tommy Lee Jones.
I'm with you. Yeah,
that's the only thing that doesn't really work for me. Sure. Like if it turned out that this guy was like actually assassinating good people, he's just like, and this one's the Pope.
Oh sure.
And he would have been like, oh, I can't kill the shark Pope. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like that I would have been on board with, where he was just like, I actually have to, I can't do it. Like he just wants me to kill people that own like orphanages.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
it's like, you know, I mean, that's it's weird. He's trying to get the orphanage market like locked up. Like he really wants to be the main orphanage place that you go to get orphans or whatever.
Arms
like,
dealers and orphanages, absolutely.
So like, you know, maybe if he was just like, or maybe it's like this is the one arms dealer that's actually giving arms to like the resistance movements in these countries that are like, maybe under that circumstance I can be like, okay, like I get why you want to save this guy, but alternative is it's like he put himself in so much danger to get there and talk to Tommy Lee Jones. Mm-hmm. When he could have just killed him. I
am absolutely with you. I don't even think, because wasn't the whole thing with Tommy Lee Jones like a lot of his shit, or maybe not like a lot of his arms, but he is the only person in the world with like a stockpile of submarines or something like that, you know, or like communist submarines or something. There's something about that going on at the end of the movie.
Something. Yeah. So like, it's just he put himself in way too much trouble or way too much danger. He could have just like, and just is Tommy Lee Jones surviving good for the planet or good for anything? Like Jason Statham is supposed to be like somebody who's more or less indifferent to death, and he wants to save somebody who is an arms. Like why?
Yeah, I'm with you. And now I'm remembering there's something about where he's like the plan with Tommy Lee Jones is like Tommy Lee Jones is going to fake his death. Crane will think that Tommy Lee Jones is dead, so he's going to send like all his men to the communist submarines, and then I think Statham says something where he's like, and that'll be my time to strike because Jessica Alba won't be guarded. And I'm like, one, he's not going to send all of his men to the communist submarines, and two, do you think all of his men are guarding Jessica Alba? Like, that's like a 5-guy job max. And he has to fight goons on the yacht anyway at the end of the movie. I was so just like out of the story by this point. I was just like, he's just gonna fly away and everything's gonna be right at the end of the day.
It didn't work for me in that sense. It just didn't make a ton of sense as a character motivation.
Sure.
Like why?
Yeah.
Now, you know, again, had it been like this guy actually is trying to build a hospital in Africa and we want him dead because we want them all to die or have to continue to get airlifted to our hospital or something weird like that. Like okay, maybe like he's doing a good thing and I want to save him, but like in this case, it's just like I'm just going to allow this guy to live to keep doing whatever the evil shit he's been doing, probably because he's an arms dealer.
And Statham's motivation is to save Jessica Alba. I think he doesn't even really have like full motivation at the start of the movie to like hurt or kill Crane. If anything, there should have been something where Statham's like I'm sorry I got out of the POW camp and you didn't, you know? Like, because that goes away after most of the movie.
I think in the last bit there it is mentioned.
Oh, he might. He's still Crane's still angry about it or some shit like that.
But no, it in terms of like the motivation he has to kill Crane, it exists only because Crane wanted to manipulate him into killing other people. Yeah. Like if that lady had come up and been like, "Hey, we want you to do this job," and then he was like, "No," and they were like, "Okay," like he probably wouldn't have killed Crane.
Yeah, exactly.
But like Crane specifically wanted him to do it for some reason.
Yes, yeah.
Like which didn't make any sense. It's like, okay, so you're mad at him because he got out of the POW thing and you didn't. Why does that mean he needs to be your hitman?
You know what? The more we actually talk about this, I feel like it's all kind of clicking, this idea of this just being like a weird James Bond movie. Because I know, I think in GoldenEye, like James Bond 007, I think 006 or 008, one of the other agents, like they're captured and, you know, Pierce Brosnan, James Bond gets away, but the other one doesn't. Turns out that the other one didn't die and he's trying to get revenge on James Bond. But even though the James Bond movies, especially the Pierce Brosnan ones, aren't like the best fleshed out stories, at least that motivation is there. This just seems like, you know, Dennis Gansel, the director and whoever wrote this movie, they were just like, yes, I've seen this in a James Bond movie before. Let's put it there.
Right. It's like, And what was their justification? I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. And they're like, if they can have a giant laser from space that can blow up a town in James Bond, we can have a color-coded map for market share of arms dealers.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a goofy movie, but I mean, with all these weird things we've said, it's pretty good fun. It's pretty good fun.
Absolutely. No, it's totally still a fun watch. But it is definitely a turn your brain off kind of movie.
Oh yeah.
In the sense that you can't look into any of it too deeply. Like all of this movie, they could have just had this movie be a different hitman that wasn't trying to be retired.
Absolutely.
Or they could have had it be like, Jason Statham's coming out of retirement. This is his first gig, and he needs to kill these 3 people. Or I don't know, they could have like brought back and been like, oh, this is actually the mastermind behind Harry's death.
Sure.
It's like
sure.
It wasn't Dean, it was someone else. But the whole like shoehorning Jessica Alba in.
Yep.
It's like, why did they do that? Like, was it so people would look at Jessica Alba? Like, was that enough of a draw at the time?
Maybe 2016. I don't know, but I mean, that's what it screams to me of it's like, she's at least a name, versus the other the hooker from the first movie whose name I didn't write down, and she was so kind of not prolific in the acting world. I was like, okay, she's just kind of like someone they just picked out of, probably they were like, you got to look good and you got to say 3 lines, that's it. We found you. Maybe they were going. I think also with the Tommy Lee Jones thing, they wanted to put some names on this poster.
Oh. Yeah, you're probably right about that. And that's some shit like I know in the foreign market, like those American movie star things.
Oh yeah,
that's like a huge deal. So yeah, you're probably right, and that sucks.
Exactly.
Like especially if they like built the whole plot around this because they needed Jessica Alba or somebody like Jessica Alba in the movie. It's like that character just doesn't even have to exist.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he should have flew away like Superman and left her to, I don't know, explode.
No, he should have killed her himself.
Yes. Okay, yeah, you're right. That you mentioned that earlier. That is absolutely a good way to go about it.
Jason Statham kills Crane, and then he turns around and he's about to kill her, and she's like, "Why? Why would you save or kill Crane? Why would you go through all this to kill Crane and then kill me too?" And he's like, I don't like being manipulated. Like it turns out this entire movie is just about Jason Statham not liking to be manipulated.
Exactly.
And that's a totally worthwhile storyline.
Oh yeah, so. That would have been cool. So if you have more things to highlight or say about this Mechanic Resurrection, definitely do. But the question is there. The question has been there, I think, for a while. Why is there no third movie? I mean, this second one was wildly financially successful, successful overseas, which is a market that I think any studio would want to tap into. I don't actually know who did this. I know it ain't a Disney movie. But I could not find any information. I mean, basically the closest thing I could find to any like tangible information about if a Mechanic 3 would exist is like people online saying, well, if it does exist, Jason Statham will be in it. And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, that's the reason people would go see it. But like, I'm baffled. I mean, financially successful, got a name on the poster, Jason Statham. Why not do that again?
Totally. I even after watching both of these, I would watch a third one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be all about it. Absolutely. I'd want it to be even crazier than this second one.
Oh, of course. So like. No, I'm totally with you. Why didn't they make a third one? If we could ever find that out, I would be happy to know.
Yeah.
Because like you said, financially successful. It's like I guess they could have been trying to avoid that thing where it's like they make one too many movies always. It's like, well, actually, I guess it's too many is the trope. It's like they make a movie. It's well received. They make a sequel. People go see it because they like the first one.
Yeah.
So it's well received, but it was actually, so it's not well received, but it was financially successful.
Definitely.
And then they make a third one, and nobody sees the third one because the second one actually sucked. Like that's that's a real thing. I don't think that's what would have happened with this. I think people would have watched the third one, just for the good old fun of it. So I don't know. I don't have the foggiest idea.
I think there might be something to which I don't know all the story behind it. It could be like a rights thing. It could be like an XYZ thing, timing thing. But there was 5 years between the first Mechanic and Mechanic Resurrections. Maybe it's something where, I think Statham is, since 2016, he's still been in some of those Expendables. Maybe he's getting just like raked up by the Fast and Furious franchise, because he's been in a lot of those since 2016, and
Sure.
And of course, as we know,
I think it's just too much business for him.
Maybe too much business, and then of course when he takes his time off of doing some of the Fast and Furious, when he gets that time off of being Hobbs and or Shaw, of course we never know. We will never know. He goes.
Changes, I swear.
It does, exactly. Yeah. It's Schrodinger's Hobbs and Shaw. But then when he gets this time off from Fast and Furious, because now Fast and Furious is so crazy that there's so much post production, on like F9. He goes off and does 2 Guy Ritchie movies, does Wrath of Man, and then does this one that may or may not come out, Operation Fortune. Maybe, I'm hoping, after this Guy Ritchie stuff, if he's got some time, especially what I said earlier in this discussion with him being like, I wanted to make the Mechanic, I wanted to be that character and give my fans a role like that, maybe it'll happen. Maybe it's like a 2025 thing. We'll finally get a Mechanic 3.
They better bring back that hooker.
That would be something if they brought her back.
So they bring back Jessica Alba and the hooker, and then like they have to compete for Jason Statham's heart.
Yeah,
it's actually the Mechanic, the Bachelor.
Oh man, that would be something. But yeah, we can only hope, and I think with what we said about both of these,
can only hope.
Even though I yeah, there you go, and that's a cannoli hope for everybody out there in listener land. I think we gotta, even though we've had problems with these movies, I think we would have to cover the Mechanic 3 whenever it came out. And it would be another great Jason Statham edition. So, any final thoughts you had about the Mechanics, the Statham, the Bronson of it all?
I do have to say, as basic as the first movie was, and I do agree that like the plot and storyline stuff are pretty basic. I had a good time watching it as well.
Okay,
I think that while these movies have their problems, like they are good fun, and that's what what more do you want from a movie that's built this way?
Exactly. That's what Jason Statham thrives in, and he's got to keep doing it. I mean, I actually don't know how old he is. Oh no, we talked about that on Crank. I think he's in his 40s. But so he's not that old. He still has going. And hey, if Liam Neeson can, with great difficulty, jump over a fence when he's in his 70s, we're going to get at least another 30 years of Jason Statham movies.
That's maybe one of the worst things that's ever happened. But yes, I think you're right.
Okay. Well, with all that, are you ready for our questions?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ask away.
I think so. I'm going to do it for all 3 since I watched the original, but I don't think that really changes much. For cinemodities, I'm going across the board. No. I think that they're all pretty straightforward action man movies. They got some neat stuff in them, like I said, but that's the best thing I can hope for in these turn off your brain action man movies, to see some cool shit, and I definitely got that. I think for late night, I'm going to go no to the original and the first one, but the Mechanic Resurrection is so a turn off your brain, watch in the background, and it's something we don't usually get to talk about with like the late night movie aspect of these things, but the Statham series is really going to allow us to do it. Like, there's some times when a good late night movie isn't having like a real, heady discussion like Ghost in the Shell or something like that. Sometimes a late night movie is something's on and you and your friends are shooting the shit, and then one of them gets to go, wait, look at this. Look at this. It's a color-coded map of arms dealer market share. And then you get a good laugh. And, it's only 90 minutes. So I got to go yes to that one, but it's a no to everything else for me.
Okay. I have to say, cinemodities, I think no across the board. Nothing odd about these.
If Jason Statham had flown away at the end of Resurrection, that would be a perfect cinemodity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be like M. Night Shyamalan level twist. You say to your friends, you're never going to believe what happens at the end of this movie.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You'll never believe it. Late night, I would say absolutely. Like, I would watch for both these movies. Okay. I would watch this I'd put these on and watch a late night Jason Statham, mechanic. And this also has to go and this is something Rob knows about me. He's known about me for a long time. I fall asleep during movies late at night, or really at any time, but especially at late at night. And I'll be like, Rob, shut up! Like I'm trying to sleep. I don't really want a heady discussion from a late night movie ever.
Fair.
I want a movie that I can just enjoy, and I think this is one of them.
Right on. You think you'd do a double feature? Because these two movies together is like, what, a little over 3 hours?
Oh, I can guarantee that if I woke up after the first one was over and somebody was like, what are we doing now? I'd be like, we're watching the next one. And then I go back to sleep. That's what I can.
You're the idea. It's probably been in so many cartoons. I can't think of a single one. But like, guy in chair in front of TV is clearly asleep. Somebody turns the TV off. Guy wakes up and goes, "Hey, I was watching that."
Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching that movie.
I actually do that to my wife like regularly. She'll be like, "You were falling asleep." I'll be like, "I was not falling asleep," and she would be like, "You were snoring." I'm like, "Nope, I was fully awake."
You were like, "I was contemplating the Jason Statham of it all."
And she'd be like, "You were snoring for an hour," and I'm like, "No, I was not asleep."
That's great. Okay, right on. And can't wait to hopefully add Mechanic 3 to these questions. But then that brings us to snacks and the restaurant. I don't have too many. I think these weren't very food-heavy movies. But the first one, so I have 2 foods and 2 kind of activities that we'll probably need to flesh out more. I think the easier one is, just like in the first movie, a type of hitman training class, like a master assassin, like a master class in assassinations, making them look like accidents. But I specifically want it to be for children in the age range of 3 to 6 years old. Like, I want to have very young, like the start 'em early type of idea. You know, like then they're going to be great by the time because Ben Foster was way too old and too much of a fuck up already to become the master assassin.
Absolutely.
So you need to start him at 3 to 6.
Yeah. You're talking about, this is like the Jedi school where when they're 6, they're too old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I would also love if we had this available at the restaurant, then maybe when the families, like maybe it's mom and dad sign them up for hitman training class, whatever you want to call it, and then later on, if they find their way to the restaurant, they're talking to the other parents when they're dropping off kids to school, be like, Johnny's 4 years old now. We figured it was time for him to learn an instrument, so we started him on like 200 hours of piano lessons a week, that type of thing. And then and it's like, what is your kid doing? And it's like, well, we have him training to be a master hitman, from Arthur Bishop.
Yeah,
and
he actually performed his first kill at 5.
Johnny has a recital tomorrow, and it's like, no, my kid has a hit to carry out,
They're like, Johnny has his first recital, and then you're like, my 4-year-old has 13 confirmed kills.
What did you say about me, you little My 4-year-old has 13 confirmed kills, 5 confirmed headshots. He's been to Kuwait, Afghanistan, not on the military's dime.
Yeah, we just send him there to kill people.
Mercy.
Anyone, not specific people.
Hey, you got to get your training in, right?
Yeah,
it's like doing a residency.
You want to be somewhere when you get caught, like they're not going to be that upset about it. They're gonna let you go. If you have money.
Right on. The other thing I had, which would be for the sin e-modities portion, the kids portion of the restaurant. I mentioned it before. I don't have too much written down for it, but basically this is what I wrote: a rat in a small enclosure. For kids. I guess maybe if anybody in the world is going to get excited about just a single rat in like a little weird like bucket type thing, it's going to be prisoners with nothing else to do and kids, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they'll find something to cheer about. Like, some people will be like, my team cares about when the rat goes to the left.
Yeah, I don't even know why. The thing in the movie was like a circle. Make it like a rectangle and be like, we're going to make it race or race itself or whatever.
Just place bets on where it's going to linger or something.
I just imagine the prisoners being like, we are going to ride this high of one rat, hopefully until we get a second rat. Then the walls are coming off this place.
Right.
But yeah, for kids, it's a rat in a small enclosure. What did you have for the restaurant? My other 2 were food, but what did you get from these movies?
As far as attractions go, I think we need to have a whirlpool experience where you can where you can fall to your death. I think that would be pretty solid for the I don't know if we can afford to actually break the pool, so we might have to have a breakaway bottom for the pool.
Yeah.
So that it that way we're being efficient as we're murdering.
What's that game? I think it's called Icebreaker. Where each person takes a turn with the little plastic hammer, banging out a part of ice, and you don't want to make the penguin fall or something. That's rebuildable, sure. So we just got to do something like that,
Yeah, perfect.
That's a good one though. That'd be fun. It's like the literal most intense water park ride.
And we can also let you one option is you can wear a bungee jumping harness, but instead of being on a bungee cord, you're on a cord that is not bungee.
Okay.
So it just gives you whiplash when it catches you.
Sure.
And you might die from that, or you can die from the fall. I think that sounds great. Let's see what else. What else can we do for mechanics? I think we need to have everybody's car breaks down sometimes. We got to have a place where you can get your car worked on.
Ooh, okay. I like that. And are you saying something would we actually have trained mechanics to fix cars, or would basically someone bring in their car and the guy working on it would just kind of put a bomb in it?
Hit or miss. I think
there you go.
I think that it'll just be one of those things where it's they flip a coin, kind of.
Okay.
Or roll a dice or whatever,
sure.
and to figure out what you get, if you get a bomb or if you get actual mechanic services. I think we need to start a rule that every time we're going to carry out a hit, because surely the restaurant has its own League of Assassins.
That sounds so familiar. That's got to be in there somewhere. Yeah.
All right, so every time we're gonna have a meeting about carrying out a hit, I vote that we start saying, "Let's get under this hood."
Right on. Okay, I dig those. The other two I had are pretty small. I want to mention this one first because we actually had something. I think now this is actually building up. This is a pretty cool thing. Last time for Crank, I talked about how when Jason Statham puts his hand in the waffle iron, I was like, oh, we should have a waffled hand type of thing.
Yeah.
At the start of Mechanic Resurrection, in that Thailand/Brazil restaurant scene, we see Jason Statham put a guy's face onto a grill. So we should add grilled face. You can have a waffled hand and grilled face. It's like it's like a burger with waffle fries. It's a face with a hand.
It's a grilled face sandwich with waffle hands.
Exactly. I'm sure that some suburban soccer mom has made that for their children's Halloween party at a certain point, and she thinks she's so clever, but really all she did was just I don't know, half wine drunkenly look at an Etsy page or something, or Pinterest or something like that, And she's like, "Don't the waffle fries look like hands?" And all the kids are like, "I don't know. Maybe if I cross my fingers a little bit, but not really."
Every kid in the room was like, "No, they don't." That's not even remotely what I think of when I look at waffle fries.
Exactly. And then the other one I had is from the first Mechanic, the Statham one, and I had no snacks from the original, but there's some moment where I think Statham and Ben Foster are on a stakeout, and Ben Foster goes to get food, and when he gives Jason Statham a sandwich, he says something like, I didn't have any Band-Aids on, but the guy at the counter did, so if you get a Band-Aid in your sandwich, don't blame me.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, wow, that's perfect. We should have a Band-Aid sandwich. Just 2 pieces of bread, maybe some... Actually, no, we wouldn't need mayo if the Band-Aids are used and they got some, blood or pus or anything on them. And then just a layer of Band-Aids.
Sandwich.
Yeah.
That's mighty pussy.
But with Band-Aid, and I would love also, as I wrote this, I was thinking it would be great to hear someone, I'd like the Band-Aid sandwich with double Band-Aids,
I need extra Band-Aids and some on the side also.
That's going to cost you, sir,
Yeah, we charge hospital prices for Band-Aids here, so that's going to be $400.
Yeah, that's
per
perfect.
Band-Aid. I think if we don't already have one, we need a pyrotechnic record player.
Ooh, okay. So would that be something like when you play it, it makes whatever is around it explode? Or are you thinking like it should shoot out flames or something like that?
It should shoot out flames.
Okay, like as like a spectacle type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I like that. That's pretty good.
and then if you really want to, or maybe like on Wednesdays, we like put it in a room with a gas leak.
Yeah, there you go.
And play it so that it can explode.
And now I'm also thinking of like the old like record players with the gramophones on them, and just imagining someone playing a vinyl record and there's just a flame shooting out of like the bell opening of the gramophone and just being like, "This was the original heavy metal," you know? I dig it.
Can you dig it?
I think I
dig
can. Did you have anything else, Ben, for the end of this episode? I think we should say, of course, we're going to be doing more Jason Statham. I think we are holding out hope that Operation Fortune will come out. But if that's not what we cover next, or, I guess next, we're moving on to a Guy Ritchie Statham. I don't think we know which one yet, but we're finally doing it, where the guy that made him, the Guy Ritchie that made him, dare I say. That's right. And that's going to be good, because Statham is that's where he's not really just action man. He's a good actor, so that's going to be awesome to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get to discuss some of his chops in terms of actually acting, and that's exciting.
And maybe Operation Fortune will come out, and we will also get to talk about the absolute insanity it is that Guy Ritchie cast Aubrey Plaza in one of his movies.
Yeah.
But who knows? All right. Anything else? Any final thoughts, Ben?
Keep calm and mechanic on.
Keep calm and mechanic on. Oh, and of course, everybody go check out our Patreon. It's good fun. There'll be something earlier in the episode about this, because we actually want people to listen to it. So do that, everybody. Raffaman's on there. Statham's in that. We've talked about that. That's always good fun. Email us. Check the show notes for all that info. cinemas@gmail.com. Everybody can tell we're rusty at this now. And then we got to talk about how we're going to end this episode. And it's been a while. It's been so long since I've seen the first movie that I remember what this sounds like. But when Statham first goes to the club to meet the hooker, there's a song that's being sung called "Better Off Dead" by someone named Lindsay Zaorski. And it even turns out that Lindsay Zaorski is the one playing the singer in that scene. And I thought it was a really good song, so we should play that in reverse.
I'm down.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, not only let's go, Ben, let's fucking fly away like Superman off of this bitch. How about that?
They said that to me at a dinner.